What's going on, everybody? This is Brent0331. Appreciate you guys tuning in to another episode of Interview with Warfighters. Today, I got a special guest. I got Sgt Brian Cramer. He was a United States Marine sniper. He served with 1st Battalion, 6th Marines. He served from 2005 to 2007 in combat zones, specifically operating in Fallujah and Ramadi areas. And he's got an incredible story. He's also got a new book that came out called Suffer Patiently. So here he is. We're going to bring him in today. Sgt Brian Cramer. Welcome to the stream, brother.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Hey, I appreciate you having me on, Brent. I'm all set and ready to go, man. I got my motivated coffee mug here, land, sea, and air. So I don't know. I think I'm on about the 3rd cup. Gut. Right. Heart's going a little bit fast, but I think we'll be all right this morning.
Awesome. So before we get started, man, just for folks that are interested in picking up your book, man, where can they find this?
Yeah, so hey, you can check it out on my website, briancramer.net, or just Google search Amazon, Suffer Patiently. It's on there. It's available on all platforms. I mean, it's even got pictures in there for some of those challenged Marines that like the picture books. I got some pictures in there for them. Just kidding. But we got an audiobook version as well. So check out the audiobook, paperback, hardcover. Kindle's available also. So you can find it on Amazon or my website. You can order from briancramer.net.
Yeah, I should have read this when I read the title, but this is underneath it says a Marine sniper's perspective on creating killers and winning battles. That's a motivating fucking shit right there. That would hook me into reading it for sure.
Nice. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I just wanted to get it out there, kind of share my story, put some things together. You know, a lot of times, especially in this day and age that we live in, it seems like everything's more focused on, you know, special forces operators, kind of how cool we look in our gear. We forget about, you know, a lot of the times where line Marines were actually out there fighting a fight and getting the job done. I just want to put that story out there for me and for my boys, guys I serve with. So it was important for me to get that done and share that story.
Dude, I appreciate you saying that, because honestly, and I swear to God, this is number one, the reason why I started doing these interviews with warfighters is because there's a lot of interviews out there with just, special forces guys, and they get all the, the limelight and everything, but it's the individual infantryman that's out there in the forward operating base, in a patrol base, operating 24/7, right? And I'm not trying to take away anything from special operations guys, but these are the dudes that are, in the trenches 24/7, going out on patrols, coming back, and then like they're living in the shit the whole time, and they do most of the grunt work, right?
Yeah.
So.
No doubt. I mean, I think it's a good piece to even, to mention, talk about, because I mean, I got a lot of friends, SF dudes, Green Berets, SEALs, whatever, awesome guys, love them to death. But I mean, it's just when I was growing up, and this is kind of like the first thing, or what led me into the Marine Corps to begin with, is I thought about going into the Army, and I thought about going to SF, but it wasn't something that just stood out to me that was what I wanted to do. I was drawn more towards the Marine Corps in the end. And I think it's very important, because there's a whole, war after war, man, fought by United States Marines, line companies, line platoons, line squads out there getting it done. And they hold a big part in our history, especially the Corps. And a lot of times their stories aren't shared that often. I've read quite a bit from the Vietnam War generation, era, about a lot of line Marines out there in the fight. But after Vietnam, I mean, there's really not a lot of publications out there just in terms of just, ground pounding Marines.
Yo, no, 100%. And what I don't want to see happen is what, we've seen happen with like World War II and Korea and even Vietnam veterans. It's like these guys were silent for so long, and, now we're losing them. And some of them, their stories will never be told.
That's fact.
And it's like the Mac v. SOG guys, they weren't allowed to speak for a long time. And then, once they were, some books got published and whatnot. And, some people knew about their story, but a lot of people didn't know about them until like the Jocko podcast. Right. So it's like they were doing incredible shit in places they weren't supposed to be, but like nobody even knew they existed for the most part. So that's just an example of, guys were for the most part, keeping their mouths quiet, and their stories weren't getting told. And I don't want that to see to our generation. And even in the GWAT, which spanned, 20 freaking years, a lot of the guys from, you and I's generation, the early birds, right? 01, 02, 03, 04 time frame, you know, our stories are getting forgotten already.
Yeah, no kidding. I thought about that for sure. And I, like, for me, like, I grew up, you know, family history of folks in the military, you know, Army, Air Force, Marine Corps, kind of, you know, all over the place. It wasn't anything where I grew up with like, oh man, everybody in my family served in the Marine Corps, so I want to be a Marine. I mean, I was definitely dedicated to service like pre 9/11. I mean, I knew I wanted to be in the military, you know, probably when I was like in 5th grade. You know, I knew it was something I wanted to do. I just grew up around folks in the military. You know, my father served, he's in the Air Force. My grandfather's in the Marine Corps, World War II. All his brothers, you know, things like that. Family, just history of being in the military. And when I grew up, I was just kind of around these men, you know, these veterans. And I just knew that I wanted to be part of that. You know, I wanted to be part of that organization, that fraternal brotherhood. And where I went, what I did, I wasn't set on the Marine Corps at the time. Cause like I said, you know, I was kind of attracted to maybe trying to do like an Army SF type thing, whatever. So I wasn't dead set on finding my way into the Marine Corps at that point in time. It wasn't really till I got a little bit older. I was in high school, and I'll be honest with you, I was, yeah, definitely wasn't the epitome of physical fitness when I was younger. Fat, overweight kid, man, sluggish, non-athletic, just like a total train wreck in terms of the person I became, you know, as a Marine compared to where I was. And I think that was a big part of it for me is I just had this vision, you know, when I was in high school, of just like, you know, tired of getting picked on, tired of getting F's in my classes, having teachers look down on me because I failed. You know, I wasn't the best at academics either. And I was in this position where I was just like, dude, I want to show people that I can do more. I want to show people that I can be better. I can contribute to something greater than myself. And eventually that's how I migrated to the Marine Corps. You know, I actually had I guess you'd say, not a mentor, but one of my teachers, you know, is a little bit closer to, who happened to be in the Army as well, you know, served back in the 80s or so, I guess. And, you know, he'd kind of talk to me some about the Marine Corps and about the Marine Corps marksmanship program. And, you know, the Marine Corps had a national rifle team, you know, so Marine Corps has got kind of a tradition of just great marksmanship training. And then also, too, I started looking into the sniper program, prerequisites, things like that. And I eventually ended up joining the DEP like as soon as I could. You know, I made my mind up on the Marine Corps, and then I joined, for, you know, folks that don't know, the DEP's the delayed entry program. And I was in there for about a year before I shipped off to boot camp. So I actually had my parents go down and sign me up, man. I couldn't even join the Marine Corps myself when I wanted to join the Marine Corps. I had to have my dad go sign me up, which was fine because, you know, my family history of guys in the military, you know, it's nothing out of the norm to drive your kid down to the train station and drop them off, you know, and send them to boot camp. So that wasn't anything odd for my family anyway.
Real quick, what'd your father, being an Air Force veteran, what do you think about his boy becoming a Marine?
So my grandfather is actually a Marine. And I don't know where the transition actually came down. My dad going to the Air Force from the Marine Corps. You know, I think he had maybe other plans of what he would have done later in his Air Force career. But I think it suited him well. It's a good start for him. He eventually went on to, you know, doing some great things with software programming as an engineer, things like that, with civil service, working on some pretty high profile projects and things like that as a civil engineer with the government. So, you know, I think it kind of fit, you know, the niche of where he was going and kind of his background, the things that he was interested in. But no, man, with me going to the Marine Corps, I mean, probably put some gray hairs on him. You know, I know it definitely stressed my mom out. There's nothing like getting and you got to think, like I said, I was a pre 9/11 guy. You know, I knew I was going to the military. My parents knew I was going to the military prior to 9/11. But I think when 9/11 happened, I was probably in like 9th or 10th grade. And hey, man, it's amazing. We're having this interview right now, and 9/11's tomorrow, right? Yeah. I mean, we were just talking about that at church last night when I was at church, just about 9/11 and everything and the sacrifices and how often it seems like people kind of have forgotten a lot of that stuff already. But, you know, being a pre 9/11 guy, my parents already knew it. Everybody knew it. But then 9/11 happens and it's like, oh, shit, you know, we're committing troops to combat. And, you know, I signed up for the delayed entry program in 11th grade. And one of my teachers, a veteran, was actually talking to me in high school. And he was like, man, he's like, it don't bother you the fact that you've actually signed up for a contract with the United States Marine Corps right now to join the infantry and you're in 11th grade. And I don't think a lot of people think about it like this, but it's true. Yeah, I didn't graduate high school. And at the time, the prerequisite was, GED or high school diploma to be in the Marine Corps. But I'd already signed up with the Marine Corps, and we're contributing. We're committing troops to Afghanistan and Iraq. If the government wanted to at that point, and it was in a dire situation, they could step in and be like, "Hey, dude, you've already joined. Your ass ain't graduating high school. You're in 11th grade. We're sending you boot camp. See you later." And I never thought about that until later on. I was like, dude, he was right. Like, in theory, they could have done that, which I had no problem with that anyway. I mean, I was ready to get out of high school. But that's just kind of the way it worked out. And then, my dad and mom, like I said, I'm sure they were stressed about it, because there's nothing like having your kid committed to the United States Marine Corps infantry when we're sending troops to Iraq and Afghanistan. And I don't know, I laugh about it now, but I'm sure it wasn't funny for anybody at the time. Especially being a parent, I look back on, I got kids now too, and I'm sure, they're going to be wanting to join the military as well. I won't discourage them by any means, but I know that time will come for me also. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I found myself in the Marine Corps and navigated that with my parents. And being in the good thing is being in the delayed entry program for a year, I was able to recruit somebody. I either recruited them when I was on delayed entry program, or I did it when I came back from boot camp on my 30 days or whatever. So I got like a meritorious promotion for that, So I was like, yeah, dude. By the time I got to the fleet, I was already at E3, So I was like, people hated that, but it was all good. Worked out for me.
Yeah, what's funny to me is, and people probably don't realize this, but like, just because you're an E3 Lance Corporal in the Marine Corps, if you check into the fleet and you're a boot, like, you're still going to be standing at parade rest for your senior Lance Corporals.
Yeah. There's a couple things I'd like to kind of talk about boot camp. I mean, because I think everybody's got their boot camp stories, but on that piece, just real quick, man, I remember I checked in the fleet after SOI. I called my dad. It's like the first cell phone I ever had. I didn't have a cell phone, I mean, and the only reason I had a cell phone then is because my mom mailed me one. Like, I wasn't going to pay for it. It was like a brick Nokia phone. It's like 2004, because I didn't have a cell phone in high school. And this is before this. Well, if they had smartphones, I didn't have them. But 04 time frame, I don't know when they came out with the first iPhone, but anyway, I had this like brick Nokia my mom gave to me. So I called my dad. First morning in the fleet, dude, Saturday morning, my door's getting beat on. It like, fuck, man, it was like 06. Like, the sun was up. And I'm like, shit. And there's this dude walking around with his little armband on, screaming and yelling, like, hey, get all the boots outside, Dude, I called my dad. I was like, you're not gonna believe this shit. It's 6 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, and I'm out in the quad picking up people's cigarette butts, like walking around, picking up cigarette butts at 6 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, dude, this isn't boot camp. And I was talking to my dad about it. Of course, he's an Air Force guy. He's like, yeah, man, that kind of, it doesn't sound right. And then I come to find out real quick, dude, this is the Marine Corps infantry, man. We will find things for you to do with your time if you want to stay on base during the weekend. Don't think you're going to have your time to yourself, because that's not going to happen. It's crazy though.
Yeah, that's how people learn how to hide and become shadows and
out there picking up cigarette butts first day of the fleet, man. 6 o'clock in the morning. But go ahead.
I was just gonna say raking dirt and stacking rocks and
man, I did plenty of raking dirt and painting rocks when I was in Iraq, believe it or not. But more to come on that. But no, when I kind of went through that transition in high school, I kind of decided that I wanted to go in the Marine Corps. I kind of changed my athletic program profile. I left the football field and went and started running cross country and track, and really dedicating myself to trying to look, man, I got to get in shape. This is what I want to do. I want to be a sniper in the Marine Corps. I want to follow this path, and just set my mind to it. So when I got to boot camp, I was like already in great shape. I mean, because I'd been working on it for like 3 years, and then I was in a delayed entry program for a year. I mean, I knew all the prerequisites. I mean, being in the depth for a year, and if you're going to all these meetings every month and all this stuff, I mean, like, come on, you're pretty plussed up at that point on what to prepare yourself for in terms of boot camp and training. So when I got to boot camp, man, like initial PFT, like I was like sub 18 minutes, I think, or I was like right at 18 minutes on my 3 mile. So immediately my drill instructor's like, dude, this guy's like shit hot. He's gonna be the guide, or the honor grad, whatever you want to call it. So I was a guide throughout boot camp. I lost the guide. For those that don't know, non-Marine folks out there, like being the guide's like the thing in boot camp. Like if you're the honor grad in boot camp, man, that's like or a squad leader, right? It's pretty big deal in boot camp, pretty held a high esteem. They expect a lot out of you. I learned a lot about leadership. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I learned a couple things in boot camp about leadership that stuck with me and made me understand kind of the way the Marine Corps operated. And honestly, I felt bad about it, man, because one of the scenarios that happened, the shit was my fault. And a dude, I hate to say it, but like a drill instructor lost his position. I mean, essentially because of me. And what happened was we were out at the rifle range. You transition through phases of boot camp. You go through your initial phase 1, kind of, marching, Marine Corps history, physical fitness, all those types of things. And then you move out to the rifle range for like your second phase of training during boot camp. And you're out there practicing marksmanship, learning marksmanship fundamentals, things like that. And it was during that time that when you have your weapons out there in the rifle range barracks, I mean, you probably recall you'd always have your weapon chained to a rack, with like a bicycle cable and a padlock, something of that fashion. And, as the guide, you were always supposed to be accountable for, I mean, it's just like being a corporal or a sergeant in the fleet, right? When you're a guide, you're supposed to be accountable for, all gear, personnel, everything. But at the same time, you're a damn recruit, so you don't know everything. I mean, the senior drill instructors would hold you to make, pressuring you on this level of accountability. But at the same time, you're still a recruit. So there's some things you're not privy to. So we were out at the rifle range and we were going to chow in the morning. Everybody's waking up, getting ready to go to breakfast out in formation. And we had the whole platoon out there. And, for other people that don't know too, you always have a fire watch at night. So there's always a guy awake all the time, roving up and down the squad bay, trading out with other Marines. Unlucky if you get that draw for fire watch that night and, missing sleep, whatever. But we got out to formation to go to chow and then go to the rifle range and start practicing our marksmanship. And the drill instructor came out to me. He wasn't a senior drill instructor. He was just one of like the kill hats, one of the dudes that really just wear you out, make you do all your PT and make your life miserable. He came out and, asked me a question, man. Same question that they ask every morning, hey, guide, are all weapons and personnel accounted for? Yes, yes, sir. Yes, drill instructor, all weapon and gears accounted for, all personnel accounted for. Well, I didn't know, man, that one of the kids got sick last night, had a little tummy ache or some shit, and they took him to BAS. And I didn't walk the squad bay. And I didn't ask the fire watch. Well, his damn weapon was still in there on that rack. Dude, that drill instructor grabbed me by the neck, took me in that damn squad bay, wore my ass out. And he looked at that rack and he went like this and started spinning that cable and busted the bike cable off the rack. And he was like, yeah, that's how easy it is to steal a weapon. He goes, you just lost a weapon. He said, you lost a weapon in the United States Marine Corps. You did. Oh, my God. Went back outside, gave me that weapon. So now I got 2 weapons. And he just starts marching the platoon, dude, in circles all over the place, just PTing up, down, whatever, just hazing us, like hazing the whole platoon. He hazed us for like 30 minutes. And like the Marine Corps, especially in boot camp, is very regimented, like time. So he went basically ballistic, hazed us for 30 minutes or so, and it caused the whole platoon time life cycle to be off for like that day. And he got in trouble for that, and essentially I think he kind of got relieved from the platoon for that, I guess. I don't know. I never saw the guy again. We had another drill instructor come in and replace him. And I hate telling this story because now I'm the guy, like I'm the shitbird that fucked up this dude's career because he's tired of dealing with, because he was an 03 too. Guys probably just tired of dealing with shithead ass young recruits coming here, don't have any accountability, got their head in their ass. But I mean, he taught me a lesson, man. I mean, he taught me a lesson. I learned a lesson of just total accountability of everything. Like, dude, you can't just assume something. And it would take nothing for me to walk back through that squad bay as a guide and double check. It would have took nothing for me to check with the fire watch. Hey man, you were the last fire watch. Did anybody report anything to you that I need to know? Maybe if I would have done that, they'd have been like, yeah, so-and-so went to sick hall last night, whatever. And then I would have known, hey, look, we need to make sure that his gear is accounted for. But, I mean, that's just one of those stories, man. Like, I wanted to touch on it because it's very important, because it taught me a lot about when I got to the fleet and became an NCO. It taught me a lot about just how you need to be accountable for yourself, for others, but then the repercussions of your lack of accountability, it goes beyond you. Just because me as a corporal or a sergeant screws up and drops the ball, dude, that could ruin this gunny's career. You know what I mean? Hey man, why did a Marine from your platoon lose a pair of night vision last night on a field op? Like shit like that, right? I mean, so it taught me a lot. It was a pretty big message for me, and it was received, loud and clear. I hate it kind of worked out the way it did, but it stuck with me.
Yeah, that's a very, very important lesson. I think we can all, anybody that's been in the Marine Corps can share a similar story, right? Whether it's your own fuck up or somebody else's fuck up, especially when it comes to serialized gear. For a civilian looking from the outside in, they see Marines doing, accountability formations, getting on the bus, you do an accountability formation. As soon as you get off the bus, accountability formation, right? And then not just personnel, but gear, every gear. You're holding up rifles, you're holding up MVGs, and it's specifically for situations like that. I mean, there's anybody who's been in the Marine Corps can probably recite an occurrence where a piece of serialized gear came up missing, and the only way it was known that it came up missing was from doing some sort of like serialized gear or personnel check. And unfortunately, there's been situations over the years where like dudes have been left out in the desert in 29 Palms and not accounted for, right? And like every Marine knows the story because you're required to learn about it, and like that's part of our like institutional SOPs is because of these failures of the past. So, but yeah, it's absolutely something that every Marine learns for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, look, everybody's got their boot camp stories. That's one of mine. And when I left, I had a serious commander. I think the guy's name was like Captain Lloyd. He probably doesn't know this. I mean, hell, it's in my book. It's honestly a very important thing in my life to me. But we're coming back from the Crucible, man. The guy told me, he was like, dude, a job well done is never complete. He was like, you need to think about that. A job well done is never finished. And if you really harbor on those words and you think about it, dude, it's true, man. I mean, you can always refine, you can always make yourself better. You can always push, 1% better every day, as they say, just a little bit chipping away at a time. A job well done is never complete. It can always be perfected. And Captain Lord was that guy's name, man. He probably don't ever remember having that conversation with me, I bet, but it stuck with me. And, after leaving some of those accountability, scenarios I had, and I learned about the hard way, and then hearing that and really pressing it into my mind and sticking with it throughout the years, it helped motivate me through my time in SOI. I mean, SOI was a quick bump. I mean, you got boot camp and then you jump right over into SOI, and it's like, I don't know how your SOI experience was or for others, but man, mine was just like you leave boot camp and then you go to SOI. It's just like an about face. I mean, I don't want to, what's the right word? Just like demotivating environment, man. I mean, it was just, and if there's any SOI or weapons training battalion instructors out there, I'm not taking a jab at anybody. Maybe it was just the folks that I was with at the time, but it just felt like, I mean, I guess it was that period, 2004. So you're a few post years, 9/11. We've been in Afghanistan. We've been in Iraq. A lot of the guys, I think, that were at SOI training when I came through were like getting out of the Corps. They were probably in the Marine Corps prior to 9/11, or they were in the Marine Corps when we started our, initial invasion in Iraq and Afghanistan, initial involvement. And I think these guys are like, hey, I'm out. But it was just a real shitty environment, man. When I went through SOI, it was just non-motivating, very negative toward the Corps. very negative toward the fleet. I mean, that was just the perception I received, coming from boot camp into SOI. And I'll be honest with you, I don't remember a whole lot about SOI. And I think it was just because of that environment, and how much I just wanted to get out of there and not be there. But when I went through SOI, I was trained as a mortarman 0341. That's the only time I ever touched a mortar tube. I mean, I went in there, I trained on mortars, man. My son even asked me sometimes, he'll like watch a war movie or something. They'll see guys doing mortars. And he's like, Dad, you did that. Tell me about it. I'm like, shit, man, I don't remember. I mean, I don't know. I did it for like 1 month and that was it, But, so I went through SOI. I was a mortarman. I got to the fleet. They load you all up on a bus, I think, your last day at SOI and drove us over to Camp Lejeune. I was an East Coast Marine. So drive us from Geiger up to Lejeune, a few minute bus ride, and drop you off at battalion headquarters at 1-6 is where we went to. So we went to 1st Battalion, 6th Marine Regiment, dropped us off at battalion headquarters at night. And man, you talk about luck of the draw, dude. Like my Marine Corps career, becoming a sniper, all these things that I did, it's all luck of the draw. And just so happened I got to go to 1-6. I mean, a lot of the guys that I went to SOI with didn't get to go to 1-6. And I say blessed. I mean, because I'm happy with my Marine Corps career. And the fact that I was assigned to 1-6 allowed me to go to Fallujah, allowed me to go to Ramadi. And I was able to be involved in those conflicts. If I would have went to another battalion, that might have not been the same thing, So it's just all luck of the draw sometimes. And, they drive us to 1-6 and same thing, luck of the draw. You got the SOG comes out. I think it's like the headquarters or battalion SOG comes out, just walks down the line, man. He's like 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, 1-2. He's like, all right, if I called out 1, y'all walk over to Alpha Company. If I called out 2 in this line, you walk over to Bravo Company. And then he does another line. He's like, all right, if I called out 1 over here, you guys walk over to Charlie Company. If I called out 2, you guys go to Weapons Company. So, hey, man, I got assigned to Weapons Company, which was good. I was happy about that because at the time, that's where, your sniper platoons were always housed either in the headquarters and support battalion or headquarters support company, or they were in the weapons company. And I knew that's where I wanted to go. And if I was going to have any exposure to those guys, I'd be a little bit closer to them. So I was really excited about that. But going to weapons company, I went over there. And then after my police call weekend, like I talked about, our first formation Monday morning with the new recruits in town, they kind of let us know the lay of the land. We got assigned to platoons. And I ended up being assigned to 1st platoon. I think call sign Bronco is what it was. And back then it was CAT, Combined Anti-Armor Task Force is what they called it. Later, when we went to Ramadi, they changed it to MAP, which I think stood for Mobile Assault Platoon. Yeah, so Mobile Assault Platoon. I don't know why it changed. I don't know why it changed from CAT to MAP, whatever the difference or acronym. I'm not sure, whatever the command decision is there. But
I could speak to that because I remember when the switch happened. I was in a line company, but obviously we had a weapons company in 1-4. But after the invasion, obviously the surgeons don't have tanks, so they kind of changed it to Mobile Assault Platoon. And we even went by that as well in the line company because they gave us up armored gun trucks.
Yeah.
So, but that was probably the reasoning. Obviously, we're not going up against armor anymore in that theater. So,
yeah, you're definitely right. And prior to that first deployment to Fallujah, we were doing, what was it like? What they called it different stuff all the time. You had like CAC, some Hobby Viper. There are different names for the workups. I don't know why there are different names for workups, but anyway, on that first workup, getting ready for Fallujah, when I was in a weapons company with 1st platoon for the CAT team, it was all like a lot of the anti-armor training, right? You were learning how to patrol vehicles in formation, how to provide supporting and covering fire, with other vehicles over a span of, a large area. Overlaying fields of fire, right? So you got, 5 or 6 trucks in a platoon, and each one of those trucks will be equipped with a different weapon system, whether it be a 50 cal, whether it be a 240 Golf, whether it be a tow missile system. You had all these different weapon assets at your availability, and you had to just be able to understand how to employ them, when to employ them, in terms of whatever you were up against. So we did do a lot of training on that kind of open desert convoy training, how to, aggress the enemy, overlapping fields of fire, things like that. So there still was a lot of that training when we first did our workup for Fallujah, but it all kind of came down to just, just urban patrolling, man, is what it really, we did like the March Air Force Base mount training and all that stuff, using like the little sim rounds, 9mm sim rounds and all that. And just a lot of, house clearing and, convoy operations in an urban environment. So that's really what it kind of transitioned to. And, I never, like I said, I never saw a mortar system again. I mean, I don't want to, misspeak when I say this, but I'm pretty sure when we went to Fallujah and took over on my first deployment, I don't think I ever saw a mortar system set up anywhere. Maybe like the line companies had their 60s set up, possibly, like, being closer into the city and some of those areas where they're closer to some of their FOBs and OPs. But I don't ever remember recalling seeing anybody in weapons company having their 81 set up anywhere. I definitely wasn't assigned to them. Yeah, just that transition into the CAT and the MAP teams. And it's actually on my birthday, man. I deployed. So my first deployment was on my birthday. March the 10th, I was on a plane going to Iraq for the first time. I think I just turned 19. Yeah, just turned 19. Flying to Fallujah, man, for the first time. That was a commercial flight we took over. And I don't know where we landed into, maybe Kuwait or something like that. And then it was probably like helicopters into, what was the closest thing outside of Fallujah? I know we heloed in somewhere, and then we ended up trucking over to Camp Bayaria was where we were stationed at. So kind of like painting that picture of Fallujah at the time. We were over at Camp Bayaria. It's a pretty cool little place. If anybody's ever been there, I guess it was like one of Saddam's old, vacation spots or something like that. It was basically a bunch of little huts, on the outskirts of some lakes, and there's little bridges over it, like a nice little, looked like a little like resort town, I mean, if you weren't in the middle of a war zone, you'd probably be like, yeah, it's a nice place to come check out. But a lot of just like recreational stuff, I guess they used to go out there and water ski and things like that. But that was the base we stayed at. It was pretty nice, pretty cool little spot. And then from there, it was just, maybe like a 5-minute ride, so a few miles west into the city. You were at basically the front entrance to Fallujah, I guess on the eastern side of the city. And then it was Route Michigan, I think, that went through downtown Fallujah. And then you had Mobile or MSR Mobile, the highway that went up north of Fallujah and then proceeded west towards, your other towns like Ramadi and things like that out west. So that was kind of like the lay of the land. And when we came in, we ripped with 3-5. So 3-5 was the one, they were there doing the push through Fallujah, Battle of Fallujah at the time. And, like I said, I don't remember if it's Phantom Fury or whatever the operations were, but we got there after one of those Fallujah battles. So when we showed up, everything was pretty quiet. We definitely 1-6 when we got to Fallujah, there's definitely nobody out there kicking doors in, doing anything crazy. I mean, it was just security patrols, I mean, boring. I mean, so boring, mundane, just like I almost just, you see the complacency kills painted on all these signs and barrels and stuff everywhere. I mean, dude, yeah, we were the reason why those complacency kill signs were there because, I mean, our deployment was like nothing going on. So after, I guess, just a few weeks or first month or so of just kind of checking Fallujah out, security patrols with weapons company, and I think Alpha, Bravo, Charlie were all in the city. They had FOBs in the city. Weapons company was outside the city at Camp Bayaria. And we eventually pressed on, I think it might have been Alpha company that pressed on farther west to a town called Saclawea. It was just a small town, maybe, 15, 20 miles west of Fallujah, if I remember correctly. And we, as weapons company, would go out there and support them. And Alpha company set up a position out there. They had a pretty large FOB out there. I think they had all their platoons out there. If not, they had a couple platoons out there, and then weapons company would take a cat platoon out there, and we would do a couple week-long rotations, and then rip out with another platoon from our cat section and just support the line company out there in Sacagawea, because it was so far away. It was really kind of on the edge of our battle space at the time in terms of like the battalion AO. And out there, it was a lot different. It wasn't the urban terrain like Fallujah. I mean, you're out on dirt roads, palm trees, canals, wadis, all this stuff. I mean, you're just out there in farmland for the most part. And all this farmland is just, bisected by Route 1 or MSR Mobile, whatever the big highway was. And we would just patrol down that. We'd get in our Humvees and just kind of patrol down Mobile, doing just denying enemy terrain, route reconnaissance down some of the dirt roads and canals and all this stuff. You'd go out there, search some of these old farmers' houses, looking for weapons caches, looking for anything as far as like IED materials, anybody supporting the insurgency in terms of IED making materials, information, things like that. Setting up vehicle checkpoints, stopping people. Just basically standard security operations, right? Is pretty much all we were doing for the most part of that deployment, which that makes it hard. I mean, because it's not hey, here's the enemy, like the Battle of Fallujah, you're kind of moving through phase lines, just getting out there, getting after it. It's really kind of a security type scenario where you're taking more of a defensive posture, right? And I think that's challenging. Challenging to say the least. But from a defensive posture standpoint, we would do everything we can in terms of patrolling, in terms of trying to deny enemy terrain, being on the lookout for IEDs. But with that defensive posture comes, the fact that you're going to fall victim to IED attacks. You're going to fall victim to ambushes. And it was actually in April 23rd, 2005, actually was one of our first, IED engagements or enemy contact engagements. And we were operating out of Sacagawea, way out there on the western end of Battalion AO. And when you left the town of Sacagawea, we were actually patrolling west that day. And it's a crazy story, man. I mean, it's really crazy. I was in a truck with our platoon corpsman. His name was Aaron Kent. And I was in a tow missile truck. And at the time, those tow missile trucks, they had like a missile rack in the back. So when you sat in that truck, it was like a specific seat. If you sat in the left rear seat of that Humvee, it was the most comfortable spot in the truck, man, because you could get up in there, man, and you could like nestle up, and you got this tow missile rack right here. You can just get your Kevlar down, man. And that truck's just humming along, dude. It's nice and comfortable. I mean, you could sleep all day if you were sitting there by that tow missile rack, because there's just like a pillow. So I hopped my boot ass in that seat, man, before the patrol. I'm sitting there, I got my feet up, I'm like chilling, got my feet up on the door, dude. And Doc Kent comes out and he's like, kicks my legs out from under me. He's like, get the fuck up, boot. Kicks me out of the seat. And I was like, okay. I mean, what am I going to say, dude? I mean, he's an E3 too, just like me, I think at the time. But, he's a corpsman and he's already got a deployment under his belt. So, okay, roger that, Doc. Move my ass around to the other side of the truck. So I go to the other side of the truck. We take off on patrol, and we're, I don't know, maybe about like 5 or 6 miles west of the FOB down the highway. And we're coming up to a bridge. And this is something that I live with, and I'll probably live with it for the rest of my life. Of course I will. I beat myself up about it. But, I don't know the outcome. But it's like a split-second decisions, man. And I was in the back of that truck, and I looked down that highway, and I could see it looked like it almost looked like things were out of place, like something like a funnel was being created. It was almost like a choke point. There's like a tire on the left-hand side of the road. There's some debris on the right, and then you had the bridge. So it was almost like they're trying to push the vehicles into a certain pattern. But we were the 4th vehicle in convoy. And we're coming up pretty quick. I think our rate of march is like 40 miles an hour or something like that. So we're kind of like rolling down the road pretty fast. And I mean, we're already like kind of right on top of the bridge when I noticed this. I don't want to paint this picture of like I saw something, I didn't say it, because that's not the case. It feels like that in my mind, but I mean, we were like right there. I look up, I glance, and I'm like, oh fuck, that doesn't look right. I'm like, that doesn't look right. And but then in my head, I'm like, well shit, man. 3 other trucks have already went across the bridge. You know, what the hell? We're almost like towards the end of the convoy. Dude, as soon as we get to the first part of that bridge, man, fuck him. Boom. And we're in trucks with no doors, right? I mean, this is 2004, which is a whole nother crazy story of itself. We've already been involved in conflict now for a few years. You think our equipment would have been a little bit better, but yeah, man. I mean, a catastrophic IED attack, dude. Immediately, like I lose consciousness. You know, I get knocked unconscious because the blast is so extreme and so extremely close. You know, I mean, yeah, I could only imagine. Like, well, I was there, but you know, you watch these movies of like artillery shells like going off next to people and shit. And
Is this the vehicle?
yeah, so that's actually the vehicle. Yeah, that's the vehicle when we actually got it back to Saclawea. That's the town of Saclawea. That's where Alpha Company, I think, had their fob or whatever. I think it was Alpha Company. But that's when we got the vehicle back. But yeah, I mean, as you can see, like 2004, that was the armor, right? Which was none. You had like a half cut little steel door, which was kind of like something you see somebody riding around with their Jeep Wrangler today, you know, like a little half cut canvas door. I mean, that's all it was, but it was a piece of steel that was like, damn, man, couldn't have been a 1/4 inch, half-inch thick. I don't even know if the thing would stop a 7.62 round, to be honest with you. So it damn sure wasn't stopping. It damn sure wasn't stopping, you know, any shrapnel or IEDs. But like, you know, this picture here, you can see where we had fastened some Kevlar padding to the outside of those doors to assist with that. And that's actually the driver door there. And you can see some holes down there on the kick panel. That's where my buddy Tim Amstutz, he took shrapnel through his foot from those holes down there around that kick panel by the front of that door. But yeah, man, just massive blast vehicle with no armor, no defensive components on it whatsoever. And it's an open cab, you know, so all that shrapnel and stuff's coming through. And that's that left side rear seat that you can see there. That's where Kent was sitting. And I was adjacent to him on the other side. And yeah, man, I mean, you get a blast that close, dude. All 4 wheels punctured. The driver at the time, Tim Amstutz, man, great job. You know, potentially saved us from any secondary explosives or secondary engagement. Kept the foot to the pedal, you know, gassed it out of the ambush zone, got us to the other side of the bridge, and kind of pulled off in a little bit of defilade. And that was about the time that I started regaining consciousness. You know, it took me from one side of the bridge to the other to regain consciousness. And I think that's actually a photo of me there walking around the vehicle. But yeah, man, I mean, you know, I had a little piece of shrapnel in my hand on fire, like just jammed itself right down in my hand, a few inch piece of shrapnel that came through the window, went down in my hand on fire. And when I woke up, I kind of seen that and swatted at it. And that was like my first recollection of when I regained consciousness, and kind of just kicked the door open, you know, my M16, looking for threats. I mean, I'm just completely dazed and confused, man. It's like a fog that I've never had before. Just I'm telling my body to do shit, but it's not doing it. Like I'm just so just like concussed, disoriented. But I finally started coming back around. And when I did, you know, we assessed the area to make sure there was no secondary threat. Other trucks kind of swung around up and down the highway to you know, deter any secondary engagement. And immediately we just went to treating wounded. And at that time, you know, Kent was the first person I went to because obviously he was wounded the worst. And you know, that's his sleeve there on the ground, man. He took a piece of shrapnel straight through his arm, dude, into his chest cavity. You know, it's something I live with every day. I know the guys in my platoon live with it every day. You know your life-saving skills. You try to do your trauma care as best you can out in the field. But I mean, damn, man, you know, at this point, I think we're like 45, 30 minutes away from battalion surgical, you know, which you might as well be on another fucking planet, you know, at that point. And it's basically just up to you to try to do what you can to save somebody's life. You know, I mean, you got an IFAC on you and that's about it. And, you know, it's just a tough scenario. It was definitely a catastrophic injury type situation where, truth be told, man, even if something like that happened when you're sitting in an ER waiting room, you question whether or not the outcome would have been any different, even if you had all the tools and knowledge at your disposal or not. But, from there, a lot of these pictures here are just of myself and my sergeant disassembling the vehicle. We split the patrol in two and sent the other half of the patrol back to battalion surgical with the wounded. We actually had 3 wounded that day. Doc Kent, unfortunately, who lost his life. My buddy Tim Amstutz, who basically lost function of his foot, man, had most of all his foot blasted off, which, God bless him. He recuperated and then actually deployed with us again to Ramadi after spending pretty much his entire, post-deployment time in Fallujah and rehabilitation. But, he got his foot back going again and then deployed with us again to Ramadi after all that. And then Jonathan Poole was the guy up in the turret, and the machine gun actually took shrapnel through his thigh. So we had a few wounded that day, pretty much a disabled vehicle. And, obviously at that point, SOP is to sterilize the vehicle. You got all your comms equipment and all that stuff in there that you got to get all that shit out, right? You can't leave anything for the enemy. Cause we didn't know at that time, would somebody be coming to pick this truck up or not? Are we going to leave this damn thing here? Drop a thermite on it, whatever, just leave it. But the vehicle's completely disabled anyway. And yeah, man. So from there, providing security, getting that vehicle out of there, sterilizing it and getting it back. And, that's kind of just that IED situation, man. And that happened to us one time. And I would like to say that was the only time it happened, but it happened again, similar scenario, maybe like a month or so later, not very far from that same site. And this time, really, really crazy, man. I mean, this is still blows my mind to this day. The second time it happened, not far from that location, ID goes off, and a piece of shrapnel. It wasn't in my truck; it was in another truck in a convoy. But a piece of shrapnel went up above the machine gun turret shield. How you'd have a 240 or a 50 cal mounted in between that shield of that machine, the protective steel. And it went up, it ricocheted off that or just went right over top of it. And the kid was standing up, and his name was Brian Floyd. He's in our platoon, and the shrapnel chipped the top of his skull, man. And it pulled his fucking head off, exposed his brain, the whole top of his head was gone. And Doc Seltzer was the one that was there with us after Kent. And dude, man, that corpsman saved his fucking life, man. That kid was missing the top part of his skull, brain exposed, and that corpsman saved his life, man. They got him back to battalion surgical, and he lived and ended up having a full career in the military, I believe.
Holy shit.
Yeah, wild, man. I mean, dude, and when he redeployed with us, bro, he had a fucking scar. He had this scar all the way around from his surgery, dude. It took the top of his head off. But just extremely crazy, man. It's this event. I mean, hats off to that corpsman who saved his life, dude. Because I'll be honest with you, if I was in a situation where brain was exposed, I wouldn't know what to do. Because obviously in a situation like that, you don't want to apply direct pressure. You'd probably have some of our dumbasses out there trying to pour Quick Clot in the shit, being idiots. But I mean, hell, man, you don't know what to do. Shit, you don't train for somebody's brain, to be exposed out of your skull, especially not in a situation where you're going to attempt to save their life. So yeah, I mean, that was just kind of that world we lived in with the IED exposure and attacks, and it just sucked because it was a defensive posture. And that was really when my desire to become a sniper kicked into hyperdrive, because I realized at that point, if we're not going to have these major battles, right? If you're not going to have these Fallujah pushes, if you're not going to have these big fights with the enemy, it's going to be asymmetrical, or not asymmetrical, but just straight, just counterinsurgency operations, right? It's just going to be security and counterinsurgency. And if you're going to get in the fight and go fucking kill dudes in a counterinsurgency environment, you want to do that as a sniper, because those are the dudes that are getting the most action. Those are the dudes that were killing the most bad guys. And that's when I was sitting in that event after multiple IED attacks. I was like, dude, I don't want to do this shit, man. because I want to get out there and get after the enemy. I don't want to be out here and just be like an IED sponge, be like a fucking bullet sponge, like I want to get out here and get after dudes. And that was when it kind of kicked into hyperdrive. Like, dude, I want to get into a sniper platoon, no matter what it takes me to do that. But, as we finished out that deployment, we had a great lieutenant, man. I'll never forget the guy. He's a stud, dude. Awesome guy. And, they come up with some plans like, shit, man. Yeah, we're a mobile platoon, but let's start dropping some dismounts out here and let's start doing some ambush tactics and shit on the enemy, right? So we came up with some plans to do this and we started doing it, man. The shit was effective. So like what we did from there after those multiple IED attacks, we're like, dude, we're going to start staying off the highway, get on some of these back roads, putting the trucks down in some defilade, hide, wait, see if we see anybody coming out. But we would still have to do overwatches because that was kind of our purpose, right? Just denying enemy terrain. If you have overwatch out, the enemy's not going to come in and put an IED out most of the time when you have gun trucks sitting up on top of an overpass looking east and west, right? I mean, for all they know, we probably got some alien extraterrestrial thermal optics that they think that we can see them from 2,000 miles away. And the fact of the matter is I'm using some shit from fucking World War II that the Marine Corps issued me. Like my binos, I can see farther with my eyes than I can my binos that I was issued. But anyway, so we're sitting there, doing some of those overt things. And then we started getting into some covert stuff, which I thought was pretty cool because none of the other platoons were doing that. I mean, that's just kind of the line mentality, and let me phrase this the right way, because it's not like a jab at command or whatever, but it's one of those things where you've already had the push through Fallujah, right? So you've already had the big battle. So now you're kind of in this hearts and minds phase, right? We're not out here just to seek and destroy and murder everything we see. And you got a bunch of young guys, dude, 18, 19, 20-year-old kids running the freaking roads with machine guns, dude, and missiles. So you got to keep a rein on it. I get it. So I think there was some concern with just how much autonomy you would give some of these teams and these people. I get it. And I think that's kind of what it was. But we started doing some stuff. I guess, our platoon commander and staff sergeant put together some plans and they were like, hey, man, yeah, that's a good idea. We'll give you autonomy to go do that. And what we started doing was we would take some trucks out, just like a standard patrol. We'd go out in the desert, pretend we're doing a standard patrol, maybe cross the highway a couple times. And then we come back by, we'd hit some defilade, like we would for normal, and just wait for a couple hours in an overwatch position, truck down to some defilade. But, if the enemy was there observing, they would know we were there. So we'd do that. But now, instead of everybody loading up and kicking out, we'd leave dudes behind. So we'd start leaving dudes behind on the ground. And typically what it would be is a fire team, right? So we'd take a couple guys out of each truck. So it wasn't, a full skeleton crew in a vehicle. And we'd put together 4 or 5 guys. And I remember one day it was me, my vehicle commander, and 2 other dudes. So it's, just a fire team. And we were just loaded down with some gear, man. Had the Prick 119 radio, basically just water because we were just going to be out there till sun went down. And, had a couple AT-4 rockets, 240 Golf, and just our, M16s. And they left us out there. And, dude, straight up, man, I learned this was my first taste of this is what it's like to be in a sniper platoon or be in a state platoon. Cause you're just out here kind of covert watching the highway. Nobody's here to fucking help you, man. You're by yourself, bro. And it was awesome, dude. I couldn't get enough of this shit. So they left us out there, man, drove off. I mean, we're probably a few miles away from the base, but we're right on the main highway, north of Fallujah, just looking at MSR Mobile, the big highway, that we were getting bombed on, IED'd on all the time. And dude, it wasn't an hour after the patrol left. We had pressed up towards the highway. So from where our trucks dropped us off and where we were stationed at, we kind of found a little trench run of some defilade, and we stayed real low in some cover and pressed up towards the highway a little bit farther. So the dirt road that our trucks traverse down, and it is open desert, but you got some berms here and some old debris and things like that. So it's not always traversable. So if a vehicle came down, the vehicle would probably stay on that road behind us that we left. So we had left that road, proceeded forward down to close the gap closer to the highway so we could get eyes on our objective, which that was our objective at the time, was just to observe that little strip of road. And we did so, keeping ourselves concealed through that little trench. And then we found almost like a dugout, man. Looked like where some artillery shells got blown up at. There's a couple of them, and it was a perfect spot where you couldn't see us back from the road, and then we could still see the highway. So, just kind of niched out a little spot for the binos, got up there, and just one person at a time, just observing the road. And it was like an hour after we got into position, man. I could hear it. Damn cars coming down the road where our convoy just left. And I was like, oh shit, man. Heart starts going. I was like, this is it, and the car come up and stop, and you could hear the shit, and you could hear motherfuckers talking. And I was like, oh fuck. But they were coming to check to see if anybody was there. Like, that's what they were doing, but of course, like, positive ID to engage. Like, if you don't have positive ID, you can't engage. You're not getting shot at. You can't engage. So, I mean, there's no engagement there, but that car came to check to see if anybody was there. And then it left. And then not even an hour, man, after that car down on the highway, all of a sudden, big ass traffic jam going west. All of a sudden, big old traffic jam going west. So, and we're sitting there watching this shit with the binos, man. I couldn't believe it. I was like, dude, it's like watching a fucking cartoon, man. And here I am, 19-year-old freaking Lance Corporal, freaking Schmuckatelli. Like, I'm watching this through my binos. Can't believe it. Like, all of a sudden, this car breaks down like 500 yards up the highway. So we're probably about 500 yards from the highway, like direct engagement site. So we're a little ways off, because once you got past the defilade we were in, it was just flat, so it was just flat up to the embankment where the highway was elevated. So if we got any closer, we would just be fully exposed. So that was the closest we could get. But, farther west down the highway, a few hundred yards, this vehicle's broke down, and come to find out, that's just a ploy. That's some bullshit just to stop traffic. And the reason they were stopping traffic was because another 400 yards or 500 yards down east, I'm looking at my binos, and here's these three shitheads get out of this car with bags and start digging in the median. And I'm like, oh, fuck. This is what it looks like. Like, this is what I'm supposed to be looking for. I'm like, hey, Sergeant, check this out. And he's like, what are you seeing? And I was like, well, I see these dudes. They're digging in the median and putting a bag in the dirt. And he's like, you fucking sure, man? He's like, are you sure that's what you see? I was like, oh, I'm fucking positive. And he was like, which car is it? I was like, that damn white and orange taxi right there. And he's like, yeah, I see it. He's like, those three dudes right there. I was like, oh yeah, that's them, man. And he was a machine gunner by trade too. He gets nuzzled in all real tight behind that 240, man. And it's just like a countdown. All right, dude, we're going to fucking hit it, man. We all get our M16s and shit. And we get up, engage his fucking target, dude. And it's just all hell goes loose, man. And he's ripping that 240, dude. These dudes fucking over the hood. One guy, I mean, dude, it was the craziest shit I ever seen, man. That whole highway that was broke down, like all this traffic in the road, gone. Everybody gone, except for that fucking vehicle.
Shocking, right?
Yeah. So I'm like, holy shit. I mean, because, you got to think, man, I was on this defensive deployment, right? And it's funny. I'm real dramatic about this story. And most people be like, oh, man, okay, some little fucking line platoon guys out there took a shot at a dude, put an IED, big deal. No, dude, it was a big deal, man. I mean, because we were on a deployment where like nothing was going on. Nothing was going on. And we changed our tactics to get out there and get after the enemy in the only way that we could, and it turned out to be successful. And we actually ended up going out there. EOD came out, and sure as shit, man, it was like 3 daisy chain 155s, dude. They were putting in the road, man. That would have been the next convoy that came by, coming from freaking, Ramadi or Baghdad or wherever, past that, Route 1 highway, dude. They would have got blown the hell up. Because I mean, that highway was terrible, man. There's people out there getting killed all the time. Coalition forces. I mean, we'd hear about it all the time. It wasn't guys from our battalion, because most of the guys from our battalion were, in the city being occupied with security patrols inside the city, or if there were any casualties or anything going on, it was left probably to us guys in weapons company, because we were the only dudes out there doing route security, right, over that section of highway. So it's just an interesting story, man. We went down there, never found a body, dude. And I don't know how, because I don't have the pictures of it, but there were damn shot groupings, dude. And this, like, the dude was sitting in a car. There was 2 dudes still sitting in a car. And there's shot groupings, dude, from 500 yards, like 5 and 6 bullets, like in holes like this, like going right to where someone would be sitting at. Dude, I don't know how. I don't know how or where the bodies were, man. I mean, there's no way those dudes didn't get killed. But I mean, I guess with no body, hey, at the end of the day, they'll be thinking twice about that shit. And me and my other PFC 2 boot asses over there that are in this ambush site for the first time in our lives, we look at each other and we're like, dude, we had a fucking AT4 next to us. Why didn't we just use the AT4? We could have shot it. That should have been the first go-to. But, you know, we're just so excited to get to shoot at somebody, you know, engage the enemy. Fucking everything else is out the window at that point. But no, we started doing tactics like that towards the end of that Fallujah deployment. And they were successful. You know, I mean, we started operating in that manner. We never had any more IED, you know, situations come up. I mean, I remember Fallujah towards the end, we did like a couple very large regimental operations. Just way out in the desert, man. I'm talking about going on vehicle patrols for like 3 weeks at a time. Like, you just load the truck down with chow and water and you're just gone. I mean, you're out there sleeping on the roof of the Humvee under stars so clear that I've never seen so clear in my life, just in the middle of the freaking desert, dude. Just and you would just patrol all day, man. You'd go patrol all day, search houses and random farm villages all day, and then you'd come in at night and you'd set up your Humvee security perimeter. I mean, maybe like a couple 100 yards. I mean, the closest truck to you, you'd have a truck with it. I mean, because it was open desert, right? So, I mean, you'd have a truck, you know, 100 or so yards away from you. You guys would just form a circle, wagon wheel, and that'd be your 360 security for the night. You keep somebody up on the guns all night in a defensive position, and, you know, you wake up the next morning, you hit the road, and you start patrolling again. You know, we'd go out and do some big battalion ops like that for, you know, weeks at a time, finding weapons caches, things like that. Interpreters out there, you know, asking questions, the locals, things of that nature. But, you know, after that, that kind of wound down the Fallujah deployment for us. And when I got back to, you know, like your staging area, when you're getting ready to ship back home, I was able to kind of talk to some of the dudes in the state platoon, some of the sniper guys, and find out they were having an NDOC coming up as soon as they got back stateside, because they had a lot of dudes that were getting ready to EAS, you know, they were getting out after that deployment. So I was able to kind of get in their ear, talk to them about some of the things I needed to do to prepare and get myself ready to try out to be a sniper and then go to sniper school, things like that. So I guess kind of coming off that Fallujah deployment, we're at like 2000, this is 2005. Yeah, so I deployed to Fallujah March 10th, 2005, and then came home that same year. So we were back home by Christmas, I think, 7-month deployment or whatever. Yeah, so that's right. So we came back. I'll be honest with you, man, dude, Brent, like that first deployment, yeah, we had some catastrophic IED attacks and had all those things going on. But it was a blessing to be able to have like a crawl, walk, run experience, if you will, like with my introduction to combat. You know, like some people, you know, I mean, may laugh about my first deployment stories or whatever, but dude, I never claimed to be a Delta Force operator, man. You know, that's not who I am. That's not what I did that with my time in the service. I mean, you know, and to be honest with you, one of the prerequisites for snipers training to go to sniper school or to even be in the platoon is the fact that you have to have a combat deployment under your belt. And it's a blessing, man. I mean, I was able to learn so much just about, you know, maneuvering troops into combat, dude, maneuvering guys around on the battlefield, how to CASEVAC guys. Like what do you do in certain scenarios? How do you react in certain scenarios? utilizing all the equipment that's available for you. You know, something we don't think about is, yeah, I mean, we were kind of fighting a bunch of savages at the time, you know, terrorists that didn't have the same equipment and training as we did. But dude, if you got young guys like myself that don't know how to utilize their communications gear, don't understand the limitations and the potential of the equipment and the gear that they have, we're savages just like them, dude. I mean, if we're not using the tools at our disposal to the best of their ability, I mean, we might as well just be back in the Stone Ages with them, you know? So that first deployment really opened my eyes to a lot of what the art of the possible, if you will, like how far you can go and what you can do with some Marines with some basic gear and equipment, and getting out there and taking the fight to the enemy, dude. And I learned that, and it served me well for the next deployment that I went on, because dude, the next deployment I went on was no fucking joke, man. Like it wasn't a defensive I mean, it was a defensive deployment in the stance of basically, all right, so like you got the Battle of Fallujah where you're just, hey, we're coming for you. And then you go to Ramadi where it's like, hey, we're coming for you, but we know there's civilians here. So we're going to try to like play by these rules, but we're fucking coming for you, you know? And it's just a different environment, dude. And it was bad. It was really bad, but transitioning back, I was like, man, I'm going to sniper school, signed up for the NDOC. The sniper indoctrination is the first thing you had to do to join the sniper platoon. I mean, long story short, we had like probably a couple hundred guys come out from the battalion to take the sniper indoc, and they only selected like 15 of us or so to the platoon. And I was one of the ones that made it in. And it was a week-long indoctrination, dude, like, you know, pretty much a crucible for 5 days or 6 days. I mean, to this day, that sniper indoc is still the hardest thing I've ever done. It was harder than the combat deployment I went on to Ramadi. It was harder than sniper school itself. Just that 1 week of that sniper indoc was the hardest thing I've ever done physically, mentally. I mean, dude, I was awake for like 3 days, 4 days. I mean, you're awake the whole time. I mean, running miles on end, man. I mean, miles and miles and miles of running, dude. Land navigation, day land nav, night land nav, and just continuous exercises, right? So, I mean, pretty much most of the indoctrination and training outside of the ruck runs with the pack on, outside of the land navigation courses, it's just kind of it's kind of like a mind fuck game, dude. Like, we're going to put you through everything we can and simulate a combat environment, in a woodland, you know, greenside, you know, scenario. And essentially, you know, kind of the way sniper school went down was, or sniper indoc went down was like, you were assigned to a team, you had a team, people kind of rotated through positions, you know, you'd be a point man, you'd be a team leader, this kind of thing. And you'd be graded, and evaluated on your performance. And, you know, they would put you out in the field, drop you off out of the back of a truck, and, you know, you'd be seen again and heard from again 3 days from now. And you're out there with just whatever you took with you, and they'll call you in a 10-digit grid and say, hey man, this is your new objective. We got a satellite. There's a SAM missile site. You got to come observe, you know, and you know, the training staff or our staff NCOs or whatever, they'd have somebody drive their personal vehicle out to the training site, and they'd be out there screwing around, having a fire going at night or something. But, you know, you just had to hump your ass, you know, 10 kilometers or whatever from one side of the training area to the other with a map, a protractor, and a compass. And you had to get your team there by a certain time frame. And if you missed the cutoff, you missed the objective, you missed the target, you didn't observe it, you didn't report that information back to the headquarters. It was just a live training environment. And then once you got there and got done with that mission, oh, hey man, we just got, you know, hey, Viper 4, this is Viper's Nest. We just got a new mission we need you to report to. Here's your 10-digit grid, go here, blah, blah, blah. So it was just continual, man, just run ragged through the woods, just constant training, land navigation, observation skills, memorization skills, ambush tactics, small team tactics, how to patrol in small teams, how to maneuver through an environment undetected in small teams. So really, really great stuff. But just, I mean, dude, just ball dragger, man. I mean, I've never bear crawled so much in my life. I mean, I've never done more. Dude, you do bear crawls till you throw up, man. I mean, all that pays to be a winner shit. They get out there and haze you, dude, until the last. I mean, they would do pays to be a winner till there was only 2 dudes left bear crawling. And it's just like, I mean, it's miserable. It's miserable. I've never been so tired. Like my body was shutting down. My biceps were cramping, wouldn't move. Just running all the time with gear and equipment on. It was just brutal, but not to elongate the training piece, but, going from the NDOC, getting accepted into that, and then going through sniper school, it was more of the same. When you got accepted into sniper school, or let me go back to this. Pretty much my whole life is like going from freshman to senior, so you're in high school, you're a freshman, and then you become a senior, you're kind of on top of your game. And then it's like, oh shit, I'm going to boot camp. Well, now I'm a freshman again. And I was a freshman through a senior in my cat platoon on one deployment because I got my seniority there. So like, I'm not a boot anymore in weapons company cat platoon. So if I would have stayed there, it'd have been like, hey man, Corporal Cramer, dude, he's got a deployment under his belt. Good to go. But no, my dumb ass chose to go join the sniper platoon. So now I'm a boot again. So I go back to being a freshman again. I'm fucking police calling cigarette butts as a corporal at 0600 because I chose to go start my Marine Corps career over again. Right. So that's kind of like the way it worked. You're what we called them was once you passed the sniper indoctrination, you were called a pig. And what that was a professionally instructed gunman at that point. And then once you graduated sniper school, you became a hog, a hunter of gunmen. They gave you your bullet, when your hog's tooth, they called it when you graduated sniper school. But yeah, man, so I'm a pig, dude. And I'm in this sniper platoon. And as a pig, you don't walk anywhere, man. You run everywhere, like everywhere. That's like part of the thing. Even if you're back at main side at Lejeune, if you're not training, you're running, dude. You're not allowed to walk. That's part of the platoon mantra. You don't walk. It doesn't matter what gear you have on. Doesn't matter what uniform you're in. Your ass is running. You're running everywhere. If you're going to be in that platoon and you're a new boot in that platoon, nobody cares if you're an E4, E5, whatever. You chose to come over. And if you chose to come over, you're kind of entering that fraternal order. And this is the way you're going to be treated. And this is how it's going to be. So my whole way through sniper school, I'm a pig. Sniper school is tough. Luckily, I went through sniper school with some great guys, man, that, most of them, I'm still friends with them to this day, love them to death. And I think they were really kind of the support group that helped us pass sniper school. We worked hard together with the academic piece because sniper school is a lot about, I think there might be some misconception because sniper school did change over the years too. Like when I went through sniper school, it was a 3-month program. And I know they cut that program down some in terms of time. And they took some pieces out of the training regimen. But like when I went through, you were graded on a lot of stuff. You had to pass every one of these phases of school. And it would start with like land navigation. And then you would have observations, which observations, basically they'd give you a certain amount of time and a spot and scope, and they would set objects up. It could be anything military related, boot bands, compass, a protractor, a shell casing, from a 7.62, whatever. They would put these objects out and then they'd give you parameters. They would say, okay, your first object's no closer than 50 yards and your last object's no farther away than 200 yards. And here's your right limiting stake and your left limiting stake. And that's an observation game. And you would have to find all 10 of those items and write them down. You'd only have 30 minutes or so to find them, or an hour. I don't know, whatever they gave you. I can't remember. But the whole point is you would have to observe and it's, eye training, right? You're training yourself to be able to pick out discrepancies in the environment that are not natural or normal. And you're graded on that shit, man. You had to have like a 70 or 80%, right? So if you miss 2 items, you don't pass. And you would do like 10 observations throughout the course of the school. Okay. So that's another thing you're graded on. Another thing would be the chems games. You were graded on chems games. So what the chems games were, they were memorization games. And it could be anywhere from like, hey guys, we need everybody in the schoolhouse to come into the head. They'd get everybody in the bathroom. Everybody's in the head. And somebody'd come in and just throw 10 objects on the ground. They'd be like, you got 30 seconds. Got the whole fucking student, the whole student class in there standing in the damn shitters, looking down at these 10 objects that got thrown on the ground, trying to remember what they are. Cause you can't write anything down. Can't write shit down. You're just trying to remember what they are. And they're like, all right, everybody get the fuck out. Get out of here. Then you get out of there. And sometimes they would give you a test right away. As soon as you go back in the classroom, they sit down, they say, hey, pull out a sheet of paper, write down the 10 objects you saw. No talking. You talk, you're an integrity violator, you drop from the class. So like, you know, you would do those things. Or sometimes they would wait like 3 days. You'd be at the rifle range shooting one morning, and they would be like, hey, the chems game we did on Monday morning in the classroom, there were 10 items, pull out a piece of paper, write them down. You had to pass that shit, and you would do 10 of those as well over the course of the school. And you had to have like a 70 or 80% on that too. And then some of the other things, obviously marksmanship, you had to pass the range, you know, but I feel like the range is pretty easy. Like if you just paid attention to the classroom instruction, and then when you got to the range and you knew how to utilize the scope, and you had a good spotter, you need to have a good spotter. Because I mean, they could watch your rounds for you. You know, when they sit behind you with the spotting scope, I mean, you can see the vapor trail where the round's going, and they can give you adjustments, tell you where you need to be. So as long as you got a good spotter, I mean, I felt like the marksmanship piece was pretty easy. You had to pass it with a certain score. And then you had the stalking piece, which I think for most people, the stalking portion of sniper school is probably the hardest. And you had to do, I think it was, you know, same thing, probably like 10 stalks, had to get a 70% or higher. And the stalking grades, you know, essentially like you'd have a stalking lane, if you will. And at the end of that stalking lane would be the instructors on top of a, you know, Chevy Trailblazer or a Humvee, you know, and they'd have their binos or they'd have their binos up with a tripod, you know, just looking out of the lane. And the class would start, they'd call it like a vegetation site. And they'd give you like 5 minutes in the vegetation site. And you'd go in there and start to clipping and ripping on vegetation, stuff in your ghillie suit, getting all prepped up to go out on your stalk. And then they'd say, all right, you know, 5 minutes is up, y'all spread out, you know, get going. And then you'd be graded from there. Sometimes dudes would get busted right there. Like they say, hey, the stalk's on, you know, you got freaking Smuckatelli over there, doesn't want to get down on his face and hands and start crawling. And he's sitting up high. And when the instructor up on the truck down, however far away he is, 2,000 yards, I mean, however far away down the range he is, he'll call on the radio, freeze, freeze, freeze. And then the instructors that are out there walking around roving, they'll go freeze, freeze, freeze. And everybody's supposed to freeze. If you move after they yell freeze, that's an integrity violation, you know, and you can be dropped from the course as an integrity violator. So they say freeze, you're supposed to freeze solid. And then the guy on the truck will watch that walker, and he'll send that walker over to wherever he wants him to walk to try to find that dude. And a lot of times dudes get busted right in the veg site. So if you get busted right away in the veg site, that's 50%. So you got 50%, you failed the stalk. And then I can't remember correctly, but you know, you start stalking closer towards the vehicles. And as you get within, I think if you get within 200 yards or 100 yards, you get a 70 automatically, or no, you got to fire one shot. So I think if you get within 200 yards, you get like a 60. And then if you got to get within, it was like 100 or 200 yards, and you have to set up your position, and then you'd have to take one shot at the target. You're firing blanks. So you take one shot at the target, and then you got a 70, I think, at that point. And then once you fired your shot, they would call the walker, send the walker over to within 5 yards of the shooter. So they would say, you know, so the guy would get over there, get within 5 yards of you as a sniper on the ground, and the walker would say, okay, I'm within 5. And then the truck would look for you. They'd have one chance to look for you. So you're set up, you're supposed to have set yourself up in a position where, you know, you have overlapping fields of vegetation. You got good contrasted background. You know, you don't have anything silhouetting you behind you. You have a good, nice position set up. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're kneeling, standing, laying in the prone, whatever. You just got to make sure your camouflage is good so that you can't be seen. So the truck gets to try to find you one time. And if they don't see nothing, and the guy on the truck, the instructor, has to have some integrity too, because he could just run the walker around in circles and find your ass. You know what I mean? So they got to have some integrity too. But if they don't see anything, they say, hey, man, tell them to ID. So the instructor holds up a card on top of his head, might have a letter, might have a number, might have a symbol from a map or whatever on it. And he goes, tell the shooter to identify the card. And you have to identify the card, because if not, you could just say that you're shooting at them, but you're not really shooting. You're just bullshitting and pulling trigger. So you got to identify the card. You tell the guy what's on it, and he says, yep, confirm, you know, card's got a W. All right, good to go. So then the truck says, all right, on my command, tell the shooter to fire a second round. So they'll get on the radio, and he'll say, all right, on your command, shooter's ready to fire. So the guy on the truck will be watching, and they'll count it down. 5, 4, 3, boom, 2, shoot on the T of 2. So that guy on the truck is looking for that second round, muzzle flash, looking for, they're really not supposed to walk on muzzle flash, but I mean, if they do, they do. But looking for like vegetation getting blown out, so if like you're behind some deep vegetation and it just blows out, I mean, they're going to be able to see that. And then from there, they try to walk the guy on you. Say, hey, man, I think I see him. They tell the walker, face left, take 2 steps, face right, take 3 steps. All right, face, about face, 2 steps, whatever. And they just walk around and try to find you. And I think if you ID the cards, you get like a 80. And then if you fire your second shot, you don't get seen. It's like 100, whatever. So that's like the grading system. But you do 10 of those and then pass those 2. And then at the end, you have your FinX, your final operation, which is basically kind of the same thing as like your hell weeks, right? Like your SF dude, like ANS selections or whatever. You have like a hell week. You're out there just running patrols all week long. Same thing as like the sniper in doc that I talked about. You're just giving mission after mission after mission. And you're given limited chow, limited sleep, limited water resupply, and you just got to go out there and function and survive. So I mean, I don't want to be too elongated on the training piece, jump over into the combat deployment as a sniper, but there's a lot of that is worth telling because it's very it's very descriptive of what that lifestyle looks like, and there's a lot of dudes that, I mean, I'll be honest with you, we had guys that came out on our sniper indoctrination that were studs, man. I mean, good guys, and they got accepted into the platoon and they got offered positions and they turned them down because they were just like, look, man, this shit's fucking hard. Like, I don't want to do this. Like, I can go back to the cat team and be a stud in the cat team and pick up sergeant, just as fast and not have to do all this crazy shit, man. Like, I mean, because dude, we're in the field all the time. Like when we weren't at sniper school, the way our sniper platoon worked, like you were in the field, dude. Like Sunday night, Monday morning, you were loading up, going out to the ranges, and you would come back Friday night. Like you were just gone all the time. Like you were just training all the time. And you wouldn't even be out at the ranges shooting, dude. You'd be out there just running through the woods, pretending you're going after targets that didn't exist, I mean, there's a lot to be learned from just patrolling at night with your night vision on, becoming comfortable with your gear, becoming comfortable with your radios. Hey man, radio's down. How do we put crypto in a radio and get back on talk with battalion, in the middle of the night when we're supposed to have light discipline and all these other things? Like, dude, it's tough, man. And you learn all that shit when you're just out there running around the woods at Camp Lejeune. Or at least I did anyway. And I thought it was very valuable. But yeah, and then we kind of lead into the second deployment stuff. But I thought the schoolhouse environment was pretty impactful. A lot of great training and things like that during the time. Yeah, and that's my graduating class, man. 3 TAC 06, March 06 is the boys. That was the pickup date. We started class was March of 2006. I'm in the top left of that photo.
Hold it off before you.
Yeah, I was in the top left of that photo. And then there's a couple other dudes in there that were in my battalion that went to school with me as well. But, going from there to my second deployment, Ramadi, it was just a completely different environment, man. I wish we had like a map to pull up or something I could show you, but like long story short, similar to Fallujah. So you kind of got like this west-east type scenario where it's flip-flop though. Our base in Fallujah was on the east side of the city. The base that we got stationed at was called Hurricane Point. We flew in on helos into Camp Ramadi, and then it was a short truck ride from Camp Ramadi up to Hurricane Point, which is where we were stationed at on the west side of the city of Ramadi. And it was right up on the crevice, right on the point of the river in the Euphrates. There's like a little island. And that's where our base was right there in that little island, that little point. And dude, I remember, man, like I said, it was completely different because when we flew in on helos, we had to wait for trucks to get us. And our trucks came and we were still sitting there. And I was like, okay, trucks are here, man. Like, let's load up and roll, like, what are we waiting on? And they're like, oh, we got to wait on Dagger or whatever they're called. I was like, dagger. I was like, what the fuck is this, you know? And then these trucks come out here with like all this like mine sweeping equipment. And I'm like, shit, man. I was like, so that's what we're waiting on to go over here? And they're like, yeah. They were like, this, the way they do convoy operations here is no one goes out until these trucks go clear these roads. And I was like, shit. I was like, so y'all don't even leave the base until this truck goes by? And they're like, yeah. I was like, well, damn. All right. I mean, it's change of pace, I guess. So we're sitting there waiting, and we finally step out, man. We're Oscar Mike headed over to our base. And this is my first time, you know, being in Ramadi. And we just went from Camp Ramadi to the base. And, you know, once we got to our dropping off point, they took us over a bridge, and then half of our convoy turned left to go into Hurricane Point. We were waiting on the guy to open the gates and get into Hurricane Point. And I had my MVGs on, and I looked to the right down the road, which I guess is Michigan, and going into the city of Ramadi towards the east from Hurricane Point. And dude, it wasn't, man, like, God, maybe like a mile or so down the road that dagger truck went going, fucking woo woo, IED, dude. And I was like, damn. And I was talking to the guys, and they were like, yeah, man, that thing runs every night out to the fobs. And as soon as it passes those fobs that are out in the city, way out in the city, then those dudes at those fobs, they load up their shit and make their logistical runs after that minesweeper goes through. So like that was the enemy threat from IEDs right there. Like you could see it prevalently. Like, I mean, like they're putting IEDs out within visual like proximity of these bases. Like they're putting them out there, man. Like in any way they can put them out there. You know, walking them out, trying to be sneaky, pushing them out from, you know, behind buildings with poles, like whatever. I mean, they're putting them out there, dude. And the IED threat was high. I mean, the enemy threat was high. So that first night getting into HP, I realized very quickly, like, dude, this is a different environment. But that's the way the city was set up. You know, we had our base, which was weapons company. I say our base. So I was as a sniper now, I was attached to a platoon and weapons company. And we were, I was part of Team 4. Reaper 4 was my sniper team. We had 5 teams. And I was in weapons company, which was at Hurricane Point. We're actually the last building or the last hooch on the end of that row of buildings when you got there. If you pulled up like a probably like a Google image, you probably still see it. But they, you know, we were there. And then as you went into the city, I think the first base you came to was OPVA, I think at the time. 3rd Battalion, 8th Marines was there prior to us. We ripped with 3-8. And I think there was a bunch of like SEAL units and stuff operating in Ramadi as well at the time. A lot of training with Iraqi forces, police forces, Iraqi army. And I think the first base you came to was OPVA. And it was one of the ones that got hit by like a massive V-bid before we got there. I think it was like a few months prior to us getting there. Had like a massive V-bid attack. And then you went through an intersection they called 295, so 295. And the city kind of went like this. So you had Michigan that went straight across. You had OPVA, and then the Gov Center right in the middle of the city. The government center was where Bravo Company was. And then you went out towards the east. I think it was OP Harea, and something else was where Charlie Company was. So basically it was like Alpha Bravo Charlie as you went into the city. And it was just like a line, you know, so we had like a line of fobs, and they tried to overlap watching that road and then watching into what they called the souk or the bazaar, the market area, which was really dense, man, dense buildings. And there was a racetrack, they called it, the highway in the city. It was a racetrack. And that, I mean, it just went up around the top of the city, and they called it Racetrack Road. But, there was a couple little OPs, like OP Sunset down south, watching another road. But that's essentially like the lay of the land, man. It was just weapons company out here to the west. And then you had Alpha Bravo Charlie. And then from there, you know, we would run operations, security patrols, Overwatch, things like that. But it was dense, man. Like when you got into the souk or like the Market Bazaar area, we did a few missions in there throughout our deployment. And, you know, multi-story buildings, dude, like multi-story buildings, very narrow alleyways, a very uncomfortable place to be, a very dangerous place to be. And not to kind of go all over the place, we'll get to some of these stories, but it wasn't uncommon to see buildings that were rigged with explosives. I mean, my point man was great, dude. Best point man I freaking think out of everybody. Plenty of times he was able to find IEDs before we went into a building. You'd walk in a door and you'd see door jams rigged with explosives. And thank God you saw it before you went in, because they had that set up because they knew that the snipers were out there. They knew that dudes were out there going through buildings, setting up positions, trying to seek and destroy the enemy. And that was one of the enemy's tactics was IEDs, man. I mean, rigging buildings to blow, rigging walls to blow, things like that. But it was just a different environment altogether in the way we operated. We would operate pretty much like, initially it was like a 72-hour cycle, right? So you would do like a 24-hour like down mission prep and plan. You'd do 24 hours on a mission, and then you would do 24 hours back off mission, debrief, recoup, maybe you try to get an email sent out to somebody or whatever. You'd kind of try to like follow that cycle. But that changed throughout the deployment, and it depended on like where you were operating out of. So we had 5 sniper teams. So, you might have a team back at Hurricane Point that's like resting and refitting. And then you may have a sniper team that's attached to Alpha Company and they're operating on foot out of Alpha Company. Or you might have a team with Bravo Company operating on foot out of Bravo. Same thing with Charlie. Or we'd have times where we would roll just like multi sniper team missions out of Hurricane Point, where they would just take you in by truck, man. They would just drive you down, into the depths of the city, drop your ass off out the back of a truck. You navigate the streets for, a few hundred yards or a kilometer, wherever, find the target building that you're going to or whatever your mission set is for that day or night or multi-day sometimes. And then you'd occupy that building and prepare to engage the enemy. And then depending on what happens would depend on how you left. Either you left from a enemy contact scenario and you were escaping and evading, you're doing a break contact emergency extract, and you would call trucks to come pick you up and you're running through the street, throwing frags and smoke to get the fuck out of there. Or you'd stay in there and you'd duke it out with the fucking enemy until everybody's dead or night falls and the enemy retreats under cover of darkness and somebody comes to pick you up. That was the world we lived in, man. And it was so different because like I used like a Claymore mine in training once, I think. Okay. I think I used like a Claymore mine like one time. And then C4, like I'd never seen C4, dude. I was a 0341. I didn't know, I didn't even know what the hell a stick of C4 looked like. Like a blasting cap. Like I didn't know none of this shit. And then I get to Ramadi and we're doing a rip and they're like, yeah, come check out your Connex box. We had a Connex box assigned just to our sniper team. And, we go in and look at all this shit. Dude, M79 grenade launchers, which was like, I loved it. A Vietnam blooper, the break barrel, basically single shot 203. I carried one of those with me all the time. Law rockets, I'd never seen a law rocket before. And we had those unlimited disposal. Claymore mines, unlimited disposal. C4, unlimited disposal. And we used this shit. Like when you went out on a mission, you had to get into a building to set up a hide site. Dude, you'd put a triple stack of C4 on a wall, blow a hole in that bitch, or if you had to escape and evade, like one of our tactics was you would never leave a building. If you were on a sniper mission, you would never leave a building the same way you entered it, because a lot of times they would rig your entryway with explosives so that when you came into enemy contact and you had to get out of there, if you ran out of the entryway that you entered the building in, they would blow that bitch up and kill your guys as you ran out in the street and ambush you at that point. So there were times where if we had to leave a building, we were planned and prepared to blow holes in other exterior walls or blow holes in interior walls. Because it's like a city, right? So you might have a townhouse facing one frontage street and a townhouse facing the other street, and they have a joined wall in the back of the building. Well, you can blow a hole in that wall and then go out to the other house and go out onto the other street, right? So that's just the way we operated, man. And it was so different from anything I ever experienced. And that's why I said it was a blessing to kind of have that slow first deployment. Because then when I got to Ramadi and seen how different it was, like, holy shit, this is real combat. Like, this is like every day is like this. I was a little bit better prepared for it. And that's kind of like the mission set, like from in terms of like how we operated, like I would say like a command broader scope piece was, and I think this was a great tactic. I do. Others may disagree. But I mean, we could send snipers out all day, every day, and we could kill as many people as we wanted to all the time, whatever, because the enemy was always there. Ramadi was just like, it was just like a never ending insurgent, just like playground, man. Like they were just always there, dude. Like, I mean, the insurgents were like having parades and shit, like on the streets, dude. Like there was like, they'd roll up in fucking buses, man. Like they'd roll up in buses and like 30 dudes would get off and be dancing and shit with like RPKs. Like that was what it was like. And like, it was just crazy. And, we command as a battalion, I guess they kind of came up with the idea of like, well, we're just going to start building more FOBs and we're going to start building more over OPs. And we got involved with that. And our role as snipers was really to help facilitate that. They would go out from their original FOBs and they'd set up a new one, on the north side of the city, or set one up at this intersection, or go to this intersection and set up a static OP. And like, essentially what would happen is like, we'd do a battalion wide mission and the insurgents would go to bed at night. And the next morning you wake up, there's a damn FOB built in the middle of like, somebody's backyard the day before. And now that whole section of the city, that terrain's denied now from the enemy, or they'll start fighting, with the line squads and the line Marines in those static positions. So hopefully that kind of paints a picture of like what it was like. And we started denying terrain by building more FOBs, building additional FOBs, essentially to the point where we denied the enemy any and all freedom of movement in the battle space. Like, for instance, I think this was actually a picture that was taken during one of the setup of one of the FOBs. You can see a bulletproof glass piece up in front of that window, because this is when we were out actually helping them establish FOBs. So we weren't really in as much of a covert position as you would like to be. But they're, ready to shoot. You just drop that glass down and you're ready to fire. But a good thing too, to mention, looking at that piece of glass there, we had a tactic that, I mean, I don't want to say it never been, I don't know. As far as I'm concerned, the shit never been used before. I thought it was kind of like made up. Like, I think the 3-8 guys made it up. I mean, some straight like enemy at the gate shit. We're using periscopes, dude. Like we would buy periscopes. You could get them online, buy periscopes for a couple $100, and you could camo your periscope. And you would that's how you would observe. So you would have a tripod and you would take a periscope and you would boot band it to a tripod and you would observe with that periscope. One, it gave you a lower silhouette so that you could not be seen. And then two, if you were discovered by the enemy, they weren't going to shoot you in the face. As a sniper, a lot of times we have this idea of like, it's always the dude sitting behind the gun ready to fire. But in our case in Ramadi, typically what it was small ambush tactics. You may have situations where you were the person that was shooting a lot of times was never the person that was actually IDing the target, if that makes sense. So you'd have one guy in one room with his periscope because he's got good field of observation. Then you'd have some other dudes in another room with, law rockets, M79s, frags at the ready, saws. You obviously have your long gun sniper rifles, but I'm gonna be honest with you, man, we killed more people in Ramadi with saws, M4s, law rockets, and 203s than we did with sniper rifles, because that's how close the shit was. I mean, you're in an urban environment. You don't need a damn rifle that shoots fucking 1,000 yards, dude. I mean, you're throwing hand grenades at people half the time. So like, that's how close it was. And you'd have situations where you'd have a dude observing with periscope. He'd hit you on an IRR, your inter-team comm radio, and be like, hey, man, we got so-and-so going on down here, dude. I got a target. Guys putting an ID, or I got two dudes walking down here with the RPK. Like, let's engage. All right, stand by. On the Tia 2, let's go. 5, 4, 3. Everybody jumps up. and you're fucking gunning these dudes down the street, man. And it's just quick engagements. And then never fails. As soon as you would engage the enemy, they would have a QRF coming back at you, dude. They'd be prepared. They were ready. Like the enemy was ready. They had vehicles established as QRF. They'd come in and try to pick up their wounded. They'd come in and try to return fire, come after you. So just a completely different environment, man. That's us tucked away in a hallway one day outside of the Gov Center on one of those missions. And we actually called in air support. They had sent a Gimler. We had called in and they got air support cleared for us, and they shot I don't even know what Gimler stands for, man. It's like a grid guided missile. But that's just kind of the lay of the land and kind of how it looked when we were there. And some of the missions, kind of walking through one of the first ones we did before we started setting up the FOBs, we had just got done with our RIP mission with 3-8. We had got done with all of our left seat, right seat, and we were out on our own, dude. I mean, my first sniper mission, I was like excited. I was like, oh, hell yeah, we're going to do this. And we actually loaded up in 7 tons. They took us out and, dropped us off north of 295, I think, up going towards the intersection of Firecracker, dumped us out. And dude, I'll never forget it, man. So the way our patrol was, and my sniper team, I was the assistant team leader. So I was the second man in the patrol. We always ran like a Ranger file formation, which is a straight line. And my point man, Mike, was always first. And then it would be me. And then we had our RTO radio operator. Then we had the team leader, and then our rear security guys, and our demo man. And, me being the assistant team leader. So that right there on the right, that's my point man, Mike. That's one of our passive hide sites we were in that actually had a family in it. Sometimes you'd occupy hide sites that had people in them. Sometimes you didn't. And that's Gerald in the background. And then Quispy to the right in the background, rear security guy. And then Gerald was our radio operator, comms guy. But, I remember that first mission, man. I jumped out back of that truck, had my MVGs on, dude. I'm all like, yeah, let's get out here and do it. We start walking down the street, all sneaky, out here, like nobody even knows we're here, dude. Of course, 7 tons drove off, but we're all getting it, trying to find our way to the objective. And dude, I studied these maps like all fucking night. Like I studied these maps like all night, dude. I was like, dude, I know where I'm going. And I tried to, like, you're in the back of a truck, you can't see. So I'm like thinking through my head, okay, we just turned left up this road. So if we just turn left up this road, I'm going to jump out the back of the truck. I'm going to go this direction. And then it's like 2 blocks. And I'm just like playing through my mind where I'm at. Well, dude, I jumped out the back of this truck in downtown Ramadi with my MVGs on. And let me tell you, I had no fucking idea where I was. Like, I didn't know where the fuck I was, man. Dude, my heart was racing. And I was like, Jesus Christ. I was like, I'm about to kill my whole fucking team. I was like, dude, I'm about to kill my whole team. And like, we're sitting here talking on the radio on intercom. It's like embarrassing to even tell a story, but like we were talking on IRR, and like I just told him, I was like, dude, we need a fucking security hall, man. Hit the shadows, dude. Like everybody tuck away, and like everybody just disappeared. We tucked away in the shadows, hung out for a second. I had Mike drop back to me, and Mike's like talking to me. He's like, yeah, he's like, where, which way you want me to go? I was like, fuck, I don't know which way I want you to go. I don't even know where I am. Like, dude, it was not cool, man. And I hate to say it, but line squad saved my ass that night, because I peeked out and looked around the corner, dude, and I seen some guy like 200 yards up kicking a fucking door in. And I was like, that's where we're supposed to be going, that way. And I was like, okay, cool. And, but I pulled my map out and looked at it, and I was like, okay, yeah, we're good. But dude, it was, I never had that problem again with land nav in a city, but I was so great at land nav in sniper school and land nav in training, like in Greenside. But dude, doing land navigation in a city, man, is completely different, dude. When you get out there and you're in narrow streets and narrow alleys, nothing looks the same, dude. Nothing looks like the imagery you were provided. Nothing looks like anything that they gave you prior to the mission. And it was a really scary time, because I was like, oh shit, I lost my whole team. But no, man, I learned that day about how to orient yourself in a city and how to fucking stay calm, for one, because I freaked out right away. I was like, oh shit. I was like, dude, they're gonna have us on Al Jazeera, man, chopping our heads off, dude. Like, that was what was going through my mind. I was like, I got my whole fucking team lost at night in the city. But no, it ended up, that worked out. We took up a hide site, killed some bad guys that day. But that was the first lesson for me in Ramadi, just keeping your bearing, being able to land nav, things like that. And later on, like one of the pictures that you showed me, some of the other missions, when we first got there, the concept was go out, set up a hide site, engage the enemy, and then get the fuck out of there. Because you're a small sniper team, right? Yeah, I mean, you don't have 12 guys with you. You don't have a platoon. You're a small team. The enemy's coming for you. And they would come for you, man. They would come hot and heavy. Especially when they knew there was a small team there. The enemy knew, they could tell by the rate of fire and the accuracy of the fire. They knew, like, if it was a line platoon out engaging the enemy, it's going to be a high volume of fire. You're going to have some saws blazing. You're going to have some machine guns going. When the enemy got engaged by us, it was fewer rounds, a lot of bodies dropping very quickly, and then followed up with law rockets, grenades, things like that. That's a picture looking through a loophole down a road with the Falcon Viewer Tough Book out, looking at your imagery. Had your maps on a computer. A lot of times we use the computers to transmit, pictures, save pictures, schematics of buildings, stuff like that. But that was the idea, man, was, initially you would go out, engage the enemy, and then they would start coming for you, man. They'd send QRF, they'd start coming. And the idea was that you would just escape and evade, because we could stay a step ahead of the enemy. We would just call for extract and say, hey, look, battalion, we need you to send QRF to pick us up, pop smoke, get on the road and take you back to the base. Everybody's safe. Well, turns out that shit's like really dangerous. Running out of buildings under fire. And kind of the command concept one day, I didn't really like it because it was a change, but we were, I think, outside of the government center. And the idea was like, just hold position, man. I mean, dude, you got 6 guys, you loaded down with fucking weapons, just hold position and fight them dudes. There's no more emergency extract because you're putting people in danger, right? I mean, the only time we would really need to emergency extract is if we had a wounded Marine in the building, right? And as long as nobody's wounded in the building or nobody's critically wounded in your hide site, why not just stay and slug it out with the enemy? So we started doing that shit, man, and it worked. We'd get out there, we'd engage a target, and the enemy would start coming. And we'd throw up ISR, and they'd watch them. They'd put up ISR in the air, and we could see the enemy coming in closer to the buildings, and we'd know who's coming, where they're coming. And we would just keep engaging, dude, and keep stacking bodies, keep killing guys. And it was just a position where it was almost like when the sun went down, you were perfectly safe. We owned the night. When the sun went down, we owned the night. The fighting kind of stopped. And we were able to basically walk out of buildings that we walked into and fought in all day long. That's a picture of us training over at Hurricane Point. Me and my buddy Brad there. I think we were just demoing a sling. They sent us these new rifle slings. I actually never used that rifle sling, but they sent it to us, or we were issued them, and we were demonstrating buddy shoot and buddy supporting shooting positions on the range. But yeah, I mean, it's just that mission set of going out, stirring up the hornet's nest, and slugging it out all day is really what we started doing. And it kind of depended on the hide site that you were in. Like I said, sometimes you'd go out and set up a position observing where there might be a family in the house. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't ever remember killing any enemy that we occupied a house with a family in it, because that's kind of like a dead giveaway, man. I mean, people are living their lives, right? So when we snuck into a house and occupied a house that had a family in it, and we corralled everybody and we put them downstairs, there is no way that, the enemy knew. They're like, hey, these people haven't left their house today. They're usually outside walking down the street at 8 o'clock in the morning. Why are they not out today? Well, the reason why they're not out today is because there's a sniper team holding them captive in their living room while they're observing from their house, so the enemy's going to steer clear of that zone for the day. But like this picture you got up here, this is like a perfect example of kind of how we operated. You got a Marine down on a scope. This is actually one of our other teams. I wasn't there. To be honest with you, I think that's Justin Cooper, Corporal Cooper, who was actually killed in Afghanistan on a subsequent deployment a couple years later. But he's observing there from a periscope, and you can see all the equipment, man, saws, laws, 203s, just ready to engage, man, ready to engage, ready to rock and roll. And I think this is at one of the complexes. They actually got a lot of bad guys out of that building there. There's a multi-team sniper mission. But it would look like that. That's how it would be laid out. And I mean, all the training and everything that went into being a sniper, it mattered because the skill craft was there. Like you can see, you'd have to lay in positions like that all day, man. I mean, it was painful. I mean, you're laying on the floor on your belly all day, arched back, just kind of like looking through peepholes, looking through your periscope. I mean, rotating on and off every half hour or so with another Marine, or every hour or whatever, just observing a street, observing a roadway. I mean, whatever. And that's just how we did it. I think here's my buddy Brad on periscope looking out on obs in a position. That's just how we did it, man. You'd have dudes in there running slick, observing a target and just ready to ambush, small ambush tactics, and then get ready to stay there and slug it out all day long. But as we continue to build FOBs, we would operate out of those FOBs. So, when the line companies would go out with the engineers and set up a new location, we'd have a new place to operate out of. So it wasn't like we had to drive back to Hurricane Point and then go out every night from Hurricane Point. We could now operate from farther in the city, and we'd be able to walk out, from those positions on foot, set up hide sites, and be prepared to engage the enemy. As picture here, this is back at Hurricane Point. So this is a safe zone pretty much for the most part back on base. Looks like we're probably getting ready to go out. That's me on the left, my point man, Mike. And then Canterbury, guy from another team, I think he's on team 1, there on the right, just getting ready to go out on probably a mission from the base that night. But yeah, it was an interesting time to say the least, man. And we found ourselves more often than not in those day-long engagements, just continuously just like engaging all day long with the enemy, just firefight nonstop. Like here, like me and my buddy Scott, both of us assistant team leaders, and we're carrying saws, man. I mean, there really wasn't a distribution of weapon for your rank per se. It was whatever the mission needed, and it depended on what it was. And like, for instance, this day, we're going out. I was obviously in a position where I thought we were going to be in some heavy conflict. So we're loaded out with saws, got a nutsack mag on the saw, couple drums on my flak. And I like to roll with my flak clean when I was over there on the front, because a lot of the ways that we operated, we tried to stay out of the roads because the roads had such a high IED threat. So when you left a fob, or if you were dropped off out of the back of a truck or a Humvee and you were trying to, range your file to your hide site or your position where you're going to set up observations, there was a lot of times where we were jumping walls. Pretty much 90% of the time we were jumping walls, 8-foot walls, 10-foot walls, 13-foot walls, jumping walls on top of houses. You would go occupy one house and say there was a house that we were going to observe from at the end of the block. Well, we could jump through a courtyard, get in that first house through the courtyard, get on top of the roof, and then go down the rooftop 6 houses down, and then occupy that house, which was our mission house that we were going to observe from. And we never had to step out in the street, and nobody in between ever actually knew we were there, things like that. So it's different setup, but the enemy got wise to that. They started, rigging IEDs on top of walls, or putting shape charges up on top of a wall so that when you jumped up to grab the top of the wall, there could be a pressure plate device on top of that wall. So when you grab the top of that wall and pushed it down, it would connect that circuit and then it would detonate IED. So the enemy got really, really wise, really smart. I mean, they were effective. Obviously not as effective as us, but we'd find ourselves in positions where we would see unique IEDs being made. We found spots where the enemy, basically had their own ranges set up, man. I mean, they had like marksmanship, lanes set up where they were BZO and weapons, and things like that. Not sure what they were shooting, but, we could find stuff like that out there. It was the Wild West, man. I mean, it was the Wild West for months and months at a time over there. I think as a platoon, as far as operational effectiveness, it's sad. Like I went back and, I've read through shit, man. There's stuff, PDFs online about the Al Anbar Awakening and all these things. And it's like,
There's hardly no mention of snipers, no mention of any of the things that we did over there. But, you know, I know for a fact when I think about the number of insurgents that I killed personally, and I think about the number of insurgents that my team killed, we put that into platoon perspective. Like, I'm pretty positive, like our platoon just in Ramadi alone, when we were there, 1st Battalion, 6th Marines, like we've had to kill over 200 insurgents, like over 200, dude. I mean, you're talking about like a damn company, like a company of enemy troops, like we killed. And it's never mentioned that we were an effective part of, you know, the swaying of that battle or the tide of that battle. It's like never mentioned. I think I downloaded like the PDF of like the Ambar Awakening that's taught at like the War College or some shit. And I read through it, and I think the term sniper is used in there like one time. And it's like used with like minimal effectiveness or some shit. And it just blows my mind.
But it's also important to note that you know, everybody's heard the name Chris Kyle, right? And that was his AO for the most part.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, Sills, Chris Kyle, those guys, I mean, they operated in that AO, and man, dude, I mean, they were laying bodies down, dude, left and right, man. I mean, they were killing a ton of people because that was just the environment. That's how it was. It's target rich, man, I guess is the word that you'd use. And yeah, I mean, there's a ton of stories. I mean, I could go through just kind of individual missions, things like that, but just kind of broad scope, painting that picture of what it was like over there, and kind of how
you brought up earlier Enemy at the Gates, right? Battle of Stalingrad, World War II, and it's like every time you have these major, you know, urban settings, like the role that snipers play in those is just, you know, unbelievable. So it's kind of mind blowing that you tell me, you know, that you have all these AAR after action reports and stuff from, you know, like Ramadi that are taught at war colleges, and like they hardly mention the use of snipers, where obviously, you know, Marine snipers, Army snipers, you know, Navy snipers, like there obviously was a huge role played in that setting, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, that's an interesting piece too. I mean, I don't want to jump, you know, too far ahead, but like it's something I want to talk about, and it kind of goes into that assimilation bucket and getting out, and kind of, you know, guys struggling with PTSD and things like that. It kind of all falls into that bucket. But, you know, not being recognized, man, for what you've done, you know, not being recognized for what you've done, I think is a tough pill to swallow. And I'll just put it to you this way. I left Ramadi and I finished my career in the Marine Corps at the Division Training Center, teaching sniper school or pre-sniper school. I wasn't at the weapons training battalion. I was at the division. And dude, I got a medal at the Division Training Center for teaching a defensive marksmanship course to National Capital Region for like DM training. So I get a SIRCOM or whatever, not a medal, SIRCOM. So I get a recommendation or whatever it is for training guys for like a week. But yet I had a 30-man, 40-man platoon in Ramadi, 5 teams, killed over 200 insurgents, and not a single Marine in that platoon got a fucking medal. Not even a NAM, dude. Nothing. And it blows my mind. Like, dude, you get bronze stars for like having the cleanest office at the base, like back at division, you know, like somebody at Camp Lejeune like did the best at delivering mail that month. So they got like a bronze star. Dude, we did a whole combat deployment, killed over 200 guys, and nobody got a single award. And I'm not like saying, I'm not pointing out leadership, like pinpointing leadership, because I'll be honest with you, dude, it's just like the world we live in today, man. Like, even as a lieutenant, you probably have no power. I mean, let's be real, dude. Even as like a first lieutenant or a staff sergeant in a line platoon, like you probably have little sway. Like, and if you're in a situation where a battalion commander or maybe a battalion XO doesn't like you as a lieutenant, then that probably just means he automatically hates your fucking platoon now because he doesn't like you. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know that relationship. I mean, all I know is that I always liked my officers. I always liked my staff NCOs. I didn't have any relationship problems with them or nothing. I thought they were always great people. But there's a command problem somewhere when you leave a battle like Ramadi and you have 40 Marines that never received a medal and killed over 200 insurgents. And like, I was in a situation, I didn't tell this story, but I mean, I wrote about it. I got shot in the back of the neck running across an intersection in broad daylight because we had to do an emergency extract and we were running in full gear and equipment. And I got shot in the back, and basically the concussion, you know, you get shot in the fucking back of the head. My magazine stopped it. So I had a magazine in the back of my backpack, and it was a Eberly stock pack. It's one of those packs where you can sling a long rifle in the pack and carry your primary weapon. And I got shot right in the back, man. It was so loud, and it threw me to my face on the street, and I kind of lost consciousness and pounded my face into the road. And my radio operator, Gerald Poole, he grabbed me by my, it was either my flak jacket strap or my backpack strap, and drug me out of the road to my feet. And we both stumbled across the rest of the road. Mind you, we're running through pop smoke. We just threw smoke out in the intersection. There's some Abrams out there. They got tanks blocking the intersection, returning machine gun fire because we're getting engaged crossing this intersection. So you got the tankers returning fire, and like, dude, you can't hear shit because it's loud as fuck. And one of the tankers is like yelling at us. I'm pretty sure he's probably telling us to, hey, fucking stop for a minute. But we were just going. And I get shot in the back, thrown to the face. He drags me out the road. Mind you, while he drags me out the road, dude, rounds are cracking. Dude, cracking the ground, cracking all around us. My team leader was the second person to get hit, shot right through his ACOG. Around, he was running with his rifle in his hand. A round went right through his ACOG and through his Picatinny rail on his rifle. And dude, like, just in my mind right there, that fucking Marine saved my life, dude. He dragged me out the fucking road. That's not worth a damn NAM. Like, nobody even said anything about it. And maybe it goes back to like, hey man, uncommon valor is a common virtue in the Marine Corps. Like, we just expect that from you. But I just think it's really sad that there's a great generation of guys that have went unrecognized for what the awesome things that they've done. And it goes into that assimilation piece back into society, right? Because now, instead of being acknowledged for the great things that you've done, you get a pat on the back and a free steak at Applebee's every fucking November, right? Like, that's your service record now. You're lumped into this bucket of, hey man, you're a veteran, you're the same as everyone else. And it's like, no, dude, I'm not the same as you, man. I actually, like the old war movies, I was there, man. I was there, dude. Where were you at? Like, I was there. But it's true, man. And I have another piece about it too, is like, I mean, dude, right here in my gun safe, I got my military service record. In my military service record, that same day when I got shot in the back, when Gerald dragged me out of the road, I got shot in the ass too. I took a round through my trousers and it burned my ass, dude, and it was bleeding. I went to battalion surgical. It's in my SRB, dude. It says, signed by a battalion surgeon. It says gunshot wound, left flank, enemy. Dude, it's signed, signatured. Like, then fucking Purple Heart. Like, what's up, dude? Like, come on, I want my free parking spot at Lowe's, right? I mean, you know, it's being comical about it, but it's not funny. I mean, it's not. Like, guys have done a lot of great things that they're not recognized for. And I don't know whose fault that is. I don't know who's to blame. I don't know if there's anyone to blame. I mean, all I know is that it feels like the guys that did the most never get the recognition. And then the commanders on the battlefield at the time, like my battalion commander at the time, hell, he's fucking in charge of 2nd Marine Expeditionary Forces right now. You know, and I mean, that's fine. I mean, you know, good for you. But like, somewhere there was a disconnect with the dudes that were out there getting their hands bloody versus the command that never wanted to recognize what the guys were doing.
I think, man, I've spoke to this before in another stream. I can't remember when it was, but I've seen the exact same thing, man. And I think it's a cultural thing in the Marines, because if you look at the Army, I think the Army severely overdoes their awards and the Marine Corps severely underdoes. And the proof of that, you could look at the highest medal in the nation, right? The Medal of Honor. 20 years of global war on terrorism. Look at the fucking battles the Marine Corps has taken part in, right? I was in the Battle of Najaf. That was an intense battle. Battle of Fallujah that took place. How many Medal of Honors came out of the Battle of Fallujah? 0. None. How is that even possible?
Crazy, man.
So
yeah, it's wild. I mean, and I don't like harp on it, man, because it goes back to like what we talked about in the very beginning of this interview about like the reasons for serving. I wanted to serve. I wanted to serve for me, man. Like I wanted to serve to show like those high school teachers that told me I wasn't going to be shit. I wanted to prove that I could contribute to something to be greater than who I was at that point in time in my life. I wanted to prove I could do more. I was capable of more. And it wasn't about like, oh man, I want to go get this recognition as a Marine, or I want to be a Green Beret, or I want to be a Navy SEAL, all those things. That wasn't the case. It was like, dude, I wanted to serve for me to prove it to me. And I was able to do that with my time in my service. I was able, and like I said, thank God, man, that I was able to go to Fallujah first and then go to Ramadi. It built me up. And then I had the experience of just, I mean, dude, they say it, war is hell, man. I mean, Ramadi was hell. I mean, it was tough. It was bad. There were times when I was in Ramadi that I really thought to myself, I was like, dude, this is it, man. I'm gonna die here. I mean, I just turned 20 years old. I'm gonna die here. I'm not gonna make it home. And I had that realization to myself, and because that's just how intense the fighting was. A lot of Marines from 1-6 were killed in Ramadi. A lot of bad deaths from the cat platoons, from the line platoons. I mean, Christ, man, I remember being on Overwatch one time and I watched a kid get fucking vaporized through my thermal in an intersection, got hit by IED, dude, in the middle of the night, and they're out there looking for him. And it's like, dude, you got to get on the radio and tell their commander, like, dude, you're not going to find this kid. I'm looking at him right now. He's in the fucking intersection in 20 different places. Like he's gone, dude. All you can do is go back to the base and do a head count and find out who's not there. Like that's what you need to go do. It was just bad. I mean, Ramadi was just a very intense operating zone, and I'm happy. I know it sounds crazy, but like I'm happy I was there because it left me. I think it left me with a feeling of like I don't wonder like, hey, did I miss something? I didn't leave the military thinking to myself like, man, I wish I would have done more. I wish I would have been able to go on one more deployment, or wish I would have had this one more experience. Like it gave me the opportunity to get what I went for, and I got it. And I'm good. I mean, I'm not some pacifist or nothing saying I'm never going to go get back in a fight again, because I would do it at the drop of a hat if I had to. But I left them. I guess the best way to say it is I just left the Marine Corps fulfilled, I think. And, I served for myself and wanted to prove that, hey, I could go be hard. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to prove that to myself that I was dependable and I was capable of being tough when I needed to be, and my buddies could depend on me and I could depend on them. So I think that's really kind of where it goes. And I think some of that recognition stuff, though, that does fall into that bucket of like assimilation and the challenges people have with assimilation. I mean, hell, dude, I got anxiety and depression issues more than probably most people. I mean, struggle with them all the same. But I think a lot of it comes through, being able to talk about your experiences, share those experiences with others, and not, you walk around with these stories your whole life and it's just out of place to ever mention it to anybody. I can't be at work and like say, hey man, let me tell you about that time when I was in Ramadi and I fucking blew this dude up with an M79 blooper and he like caught it like a football, right? Like that's not like, you don't say that shit at a staff meeting at work, So I think a lot of guys walk around, if you've never been awarded any medals or you don't have any credentials for it, you just all you have is your memories, right? And your stories. And a lot of times you never have a platform to share those or tell people about them. And essentially that's really what kind of led me to writing, wanting to talk about that and that piece there.
Yeah, I know it's 100% valid point. It's not like any of these guys are seeking medals or recognition or anything, but I mean to give them something of appreciation, right? To recognize them for what they did there. It just speaks volumes. And I've seen that over my 21-year career as a United States Marine. Like when you recognize Marines, right, and especially in front of other Marines, like people see that, and it bolsters morale, and it just builds unit cohesion. And then when you have like a unit like yourself, your guys go down range and they fucking do great and wonderful things in combat, and then they leave, and nobody even thinks twice about them. No recognition, not even a fucking, that a boy. It kind of leaves a bad taste in your mouth, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you're in a leadership position like yourself during that deployment, and like none of your guys are recognized for anything. And it's like, why? Like, what's the reasoning behind that? Especially when you come back and, in the rear, and like you were talking about, like I saw when I got fapped out when I was leaving active duty, and I got fapped out to 11th Marines. Like I saw dudes getting NAMs for, finishing the motor T fucking Humvee course, and like their citations read that they drove, 100 plus miles. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, you kidding me?
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild, man. I just, and maybe it was just the time that we were in, man. Well, I mean, you're still serving, but like, I think like the time we were in, like, it was just deploy, dude. Like, we need bodies. You got to get out there. We got to send dudes to the fight. Like, we don't have time for this shit. Like, we didn't have time to train. We were using old ass equipment. When I was first deployment, we were riding around the desert in Humvees that are fucking green. Let's not mention that they don't have doors on them or any armor protection. They're fucking green. Like, dudes are dumping motor oil on the exterior of the truck and shoveling sand on it to make it mix in with the environment, to camouflage it. Like, that's crazy. And then you fast forward, like, to my time as a sniper, the backpacks we had, okay, the periscopes we had, a lot of the gear that was being used that was critical, mission essential, that kept us alive and helped us kill the enemy. Do you think the Marine Corps issued that shit to us? No, dude. You had organizations like the SSA, like Scout Sniper Association, Recon Sniper Foundation. People like this were like these nonprofit organizations were getting donations and then purchasing gear and sending it to Marines that are in the fight. It ain't even coming from our own government, right? That's a whole nother aspect of fucking crazy. And then, I didn't put all this stuff together until I got older and started looking back on this stuff. I was like, dude, that's wild. Like, the basic gear and equipment that we were serving with did not have the potential to help us be successful on the battlefield. We had to reach out to other sources in order to be able to get what we needed. So, you look back on all that stuff and you start putting it together, and you think about, the non-recognition, the struggles with even just basically some of the supportive things. And it's just like, dude, we're so underprepared. And the Marine Corps at the time was just, hey, we got to get guys out there, deploy, keep their mindset in the fight. You're not getting sent out to a lot of training. You're not getting sent to, career schools, right? Like, dude, I wanted to stay in the Marine Corps. I was a good Marine, man. Like, I was a good Marine, dude. Like, a lot of guys had trouble with, like, hey, being proficient in the field, but then being proficient in garrison as well. Dude, I was a proficient garrison Marine, dude. Like, I would have been great cut to be a staff NCO, eventually being a first sergeant or master sergeant, whatever, or even doing like a MESET package. But like, I just didn't have any. There was no guidance, dude. There was no guidance. It was just, hey, we got to get guys ready to go deploy. We got to have guys ready to go to war. I need team leaders. I need NCOs. I need guys to fit in these roles. And that's what all we're worried about. And then it comes down to it. Like, I didn't have a monitor or any career guy telling me what to do. It was just, hey, man, you can extend to go on another deployment with the infantry to Afghanistan, or you can like go sign up to go be a drill instructor because you have to do a B-billet before you get a staff NCO position. And I'm just like, well, both of these sound pretty fucking shitty. So I guess I'll get out and go to college, maybe. I don't know. So then I leave the Marine Corps with no plan. No guidance, no plan, have no idea what I'm doing in my life. And, I floundered for years. I mean, I floundered for years before I found a career, found a job. I mean, yeah, my next step was like, hey, man, you got to go to college. But, I just kind of went to a generic college and got a generic degree. Things worked out for me. But, what could my potential been if I had someone, mentoring me on the inside and on the outside, right? So then I could have made the right choices. And truth be told, I actually, after I graduated college, I went back to the OSO office in Atlanta, Georgia. I was going to go back in as an officer. And there was a gunny there that sat me down and treated me like total shit, like I was an idiot. I was there to talk to him about officer selection and my options to become an officer in the Marine Corps after being prior enlisted and having a college degree. And he wanted me to sit down and watch some fucking hour-long video about the Marine Corps officer selection program, a VHS tape. And the funny thing was, is that gunnery sergeant was the same series or command staff sergeant who had enlisted me and recruited me back in 04. So the dude already knew me, because he recruited me back in 04 out of another recruiting office when I went in and enlisted. And then he comes in and like treats me like shit, because I guess I'm messing up his, Friday morning or whatever. And like that whole interaction deterred me from going back into the Marine Corps. Like I wanted to go back in the Marine Corps as an officer even after I got done with college. And like that interaction with that gunny that day just made me realize, like, dude, fuck this place, man. Like there's no one wants to help you develop a career path or take care of you and guide you in the right direction. And that was kind of the last straw for me. And I just figured that day, I was like, well, you're going to have to figure out how to assimilate back into civilian life for good this time. You got your degree, you had to go pave your own path and find your way. But yeah, just all that stuff kind of ties together, back into that assimilation piece. And, the unfortunate reality is, I had a good support network, man, great wife, great kids. I found my way out, with my faith, my spirituality, and I found my way to the other side. But dude, the sad thing is there's so many guys that don't, right? I mean, there's dudes that fucking kill themselves every day, man. I mean, there's guys putting guns in their mouths every day, dude, that we serve with, like good dudes, man. People that should never, ever you would think would be contemplating suicide. Then you get that phone call like, hey man, so-and-so's, not with us anymore. It's like, dude, what the hell? And yeah, that picture there is me and my wife right after my son was born. I just graduated college. And it's kind of going through that time period. I was actually in uniform because I was going to pin on a lieutenant. One of the guys, a great friend of mine I went to high school with and went to college with. He was going into the Marine Corps as an officer, and I went and pinned him on his ceremony. He asked me to do that. It was a great honor to do that. So yeah, that's tough times, man. And I look back at it, I paraphrase the Bible here. I'm no preacher or nothing, but one of my favorite verses is it's 1 Peter chapter 5. I think it's like 7 and 8. Just talks about being awake, being alert, being vigilant at all times, because there's evil out there. The devil's out there just prowling to seek a soul to devour. And that's the world we live in, man. And I had to tell myself back then, during all those hard times that I was going through, trying to find myself after the Marine Corps, trying to find my path, trying to pave that road. I just had to remind myself, like, dude, there's good and evil out here. And every day when you get those inclinations to do something that is not right, that's the evil biting at you, dude. That's the evil biting at you. And you got to hang on to your faith, and you have to pray to try to find the right road for yourself, for your family, whatever that road may be. Cause it's not easy, I mean, that assimilation piece for me was not easy at all. And I got a lot of friends who are still in the service that I served with back in OIF, man. And they're getting out now. And I tell those guys, like, it's cliche to be like, hey man, we're here for you if you need something, but I left the Marine Corps after 4 years, and I saw how hard it was to reintegrate myself into something different. I could only imagine if I was a Marine for 25 years, and then how hard it would be to try to do something different. And especially after living through the combat and living through all of the things that you've done and maybe feeling unrecognized and underappreciated and all that stuff, like, after living through all those things and then spending 25 years in the institution and then getting, hey man, thank you for your service, buddy. We'll see you, and you're out on your own to try to figure it the fuck out. And there's a lot of like, this is the thing that really stuck out to me about some of the special forces guys that I learned about over the last, few years from meeting people. Like, they got pipelines out there, dude. I mean, they have foundations, they have programs set up, mentorships, dude, like where they sponsor one another and help guys when they leave. Like, you leave the special forces community, I mean, they'll get you into rehab programs, dude, to help you not only with your body, but like to train you in skill craft and something else to help you transition into the civilian world. Like, the Marine Corps doesn't do that shit. I mean, maybe they do now. Like I know skill bridge programs and things like that are out there for guys that are separating from the service. But, when I was an E5 coming out of the Iraq war, nobody gave a shit about you. All they knew was that, hey, we needed somebody to fill your spot and now you're leaving. See ya, buddy. Good luck. Hope you make it. I mean, there's nothing there for you. There's no program. There's nobody, talking in your ear to kind of help you make the right decisions. But anyway, I'll let that one rest.
Yeah, I think you make a great point, man. And unfortunately, it's played out for many guys. And you and me both, we can speak to guys we served with and went down range with that took their own lives later on, and it's unbelievably unfortunate. I can say with 100% certainty the Marine Corps in terms of like programs and trying to help and change that aspect and culture of things has definitely improved over the years. But unfortunately, it took a long time for that to happen. I'm not saying it's fantastic or great at where it's at right now, but at least it's farther along than it was. Right.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Early years. So
yeah, for sure. Like I know quite a few guys like that I've met through college and through other things where, they were in the Marine Corps and got out on a certain program or whatever, and they've landed, a really great job, career, things like that. So, I mean, dude, and I'm happy to see that. I'm glad that, things have changed and, things are changing, or at least, that's like six in one hand, half dozen in the other. It's always back on you as the individual too, right? I mean, the Marine Corps can offer anything and everything out there at your disposal, but if your dumbass doesn't want to take the step to try to take any of those things that'll help you, then that's on you too, buddy. And I think there's a lot of that too. It's kind of like a double-edged sword. I mean, you sometimes have programs and things that are offered, and you have benefits that are offered, and people don't want to seek those. And if you as the individual choose not to seek those, then hey, I mean, what can we do for you? So ownership, I think, is on both parties there. Is ownership's on the individual too. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of my story there, man. I a lot more I probably could have went into detail on in Ramadi, but I know we're pushing 2.5 hours here. I think we're at.
Well, it's funny is you and me when we were talking offline before we started recording, you're like, yeah, I don't think my story's gonna go 2 hours. Like what? I was like, dude, you'd be surprised.
Yeah. Yeah. You probably sit here and talk about it all day long, I bet.
Oh man. So, but hey, dude, I guess this is a good wrap up spot. So can you just real quick, just kind of speak if you're willing to, just like how you ended up after you left the Marine Corps and where you're at now? And
yeah, for sure. So what I did was, after being a sniper in the Marine Corps, I did what all snipers in the Marine Corps do. I went and got a job in risk management, right? You become an insurance professional. I think that was like one of the prerequisites for the insurance career when I took my licensing exam was like, are you a sniper in the Marine Corps? I was like, yes. And they're like, okay, you're qualified. No, so silly, I know, but I found that's where I found myself, man. I graduated college. I kind of floundered around work for a while, which is amazing, dude. It was so hard to find a job, dude. I think I interviewed because I got a political science, like public administration degree from college, and I always had it in my mind that I was going to go be like a county administrator or a city administrator, public things like that. And I tried to get into those career fields and things, but it was very challenging. A lot of places you go to when you move to a city, it's very kind of insider, they want people who've lived there for a long time. They want local folks. It's kind of good old boy network in a lot of cases. So I found it very hard to get any traction with, a public or government type of work like that in a city or county position. So I ended up going to work in retail. I was an assistant manager at a Lowe's home improvement store for quite a while, which, nobody ever tells you these things, but some of those jobs are pretty lucrative, man. Like, if you're a store manager of one of these big box stores, whatever they are, I mean, you can make actually very great living for yourself with salary and bonuses and things like that. But I did that for a while, and I was trying to find myself into a higher level of management, and it wasn't really working out for me. So I took a step into the insurance realm. And that's a more, you got to have licensing and things like that. So a more professional career track, I think, as far as credentials go. And yeah, that's where I ended up, man. I graduated college, kind of floundered around with work and interviews for a while, couldn't find a job, and finally found myself in a management development program with an insurance company. And yeah, that's where I've been. It's been great ever since, man. I migrated to Florida, where my wife's family, resides. I've been down in Florida for, probably about 5 or 6 years. Love it. Great place to be. I think everything as far as the values of the state aligned with mine, and just like being here, and couldn't be in a better place, man. Involved with a great church group at St. Sylvester's here where I live. It's just, yeah, awesome. Couldn't ask for anything better. Kids involved with all sorts of sports in the community, and just trying to raise the next generation of good, productive little humans, man.
Awesome. Well, I guess we can wrap this up, but if you want to plug your book one more time, man, where can people get this? Because obviously in this book is going to contain a lot more details and specificity.
Yeah.
We discussed here. So
yeah, it will. Hey, and Brent, I appreciate you. Thanks for having me on. And yeah, you can check the book out. briancramer.net, my website you can order it from. I'm on Instagram and Facebook as well. Just Suffer Patiently, 8541, the Sniper MOS code there. Suffer Patiently on Instagram, Facebook, and you can find it on Amazon as well. Just search the book title. It'll be on there.
Awesome, brother. Well, Sgt Brian Cramer, thanks for jumping on.
Hey, thank you, sir. Take care.
All right.
See you.